The rain tapped on the window, bringing a sense of melancholy. Daisy stood by the window, resting her head against the glass, contemplating what to do next. Dinner was cooking on the stove. Miles and Maggie would be home soon, and she longed to be near the one she had been thinking about ever since they met. "Here we are," Miles' voice echoed. "Mom, we bought ice cream," Maggie said, rushing to the kitchen to join her mother. Miles followed his daughter, and they all sat down for dinner. "How's work?" Daisy asked. "Same old. Same old. Endless property division cases," Miles replied. He was a judge in the court. Many divorces, quite a few. Today, a man even threw punches at his wife right in the courtroom. She came with her new boyfriend for the divorce. Miles shook his head. "She's completely lost it." Daisy stared at her plate. "I'm done. Can I go play now?" Maggie asked, finishing her dinner. "Of course." Daisy smiled at her daughter. As Miles watched his daughter leave, he continued. "So they dragged that poor guy out of the courtroom. And besides cheating on him, his wife also wants half of the apartment and half of the car. You seem outraged, but you don't know why they're getting divorced. And regarding the property, if it was acquired during the marriage, it should be fairly divided." Daisy replied. "It's all clear there. The husband's income is twice as much as hers, so it's not hard to figure out who paid for everything. He presented all the evidence that he covered their expenses. I think nothing should be left for his ex, but by law, he'll have to give her a share," Miles concluded. Miles argued. "In marriage, there's a shared budget, so it doesn't matter who paid the bills." "I know that. Why are you defending her? Female solidarity." Miles looked at his wife disapprovingly. "I just never understood why you're always against women in these matters," Daisy replied. "Because I'm for justice. They take advantage of their husbands, and in the divorce, they want to take everything from them. Maybe the husband is an abuser. What does it matter who earns more? And you never consider that taking care of the household is unpaid work. Nowadays, women work and take care of the home in their spare time. With kids, there's no time to rest." "Daisy, where are you going with all this?" Miles asked. "And about abusers, they invented this strange word, and now every man is an abuser if he says something against women." He smirked. "I'm just saying that you always think that a woman should be left with nothing after a divorce. I don't think that. Everything should be fair. Taking what isn't yours is plain theft. If you didn't pay for the apartment and the car, have the decency not to claim them. I always find it disgusting when this whole division process starts. What about when they leave their own children to women after a divorce, paying minimal child support? Live as best as you can. Is your mood bad today? Fine, I'll go back to work. There's a lot of material to study." Miles left the kitchen without thanking his wife for dinner. He never thanked her. Her mood was truly not the best. Memories overwhelmed her, and she found herself re-evaluating her life once again. Miles. Daisy married him, guided by common sense. Serious, reliable, a well-established personality. With him, she thought, she would always be safe. That was her belief when she decided to marry him. Everything seemed fine until recently, or at least she thought it was. Now, she realized that she had always lacked his attention, care, and love. She wasn't even sure if Miles truly loved her. Perhaps he also found a suitable wife based on his own criteria. Thoughts of the possibility of divorcing Miles started creeping into her mind more and more often. And after Oliver entered her life, it became increasingly challenging for her to be around her husband. There was only one thing that held her back: their daughter. If Miles were a bad person, an abuser, everything would be much simpler. Daisy met Oliver at a cafe while they were celebrating a colleague's birthday at the firm where she worked as a secretary. Something about him immediately captivated her, perhaps his smile or the way his eyes looked at her. Unlike Miles' eyes ever did. They were so vibrant. Their gaze pierced through her and made her heart beat faster. "Are you celebrating something here?" He asked after inviting her to dance. It's a colleague's birthday. Daisy replied. We just decided to gather with friends. I was debating whether to come, and now I'm really glad I did. He smiled. Really? Daisy felt herself blushing. Of course. How about we go somewhere after this? He suggested. Like where? Anywhere you want. Daisy didn't understand why, but she couldn't bring herself to tell Oliver that she was married. She wasn't wearing her wedding ring today because silver suited her current outfit better. So, Oliver awaited her response. I'll think about it, Daisy replied, surprising herself with her own desires. She wanted to continue getting to know this man. The dance ended, and she returned to the table where her colleagues were sitting. When the slow music played again, Oliver invited her to dance once more. Maybe we should escape from here together, he whispered in her ear. Goosebumps ran through Daisy's body, and she really wanted to say, let's go. Nevertheless, she didn't. Just as she didn't mention being married. Not tonight, she replied. Then give me your number, he said, taking out his phone. Daisy gave him her number and immediately started thinking about her husband. However, the more she thought about him, the more she wanted to escape the cafe with Oliver, to succumb to this adventure, spend the night with him. But something held her back. It's better to text, she suggested. Why not call? He asked. I have work and a child. I can't always talk. Is your child young? 4 years old. And your husband? After such a question, lying would no longer be an option. So Daisy decided to confess. And a husband, she replied, looking into his blue eyes. Unpleasant surprise. Do you live together? Yes, I see. The slow dance ended, and some time later, Daisy saw Oliver leaving the cafe with his friends. Daisy returned home around midnight. Miles was still awake, sitting in the living room, as usual, sorting through a pile of documents. Hey, Daisy greeted him. Hey, how was your time? He asked, not distracted from his task. Great, she replied. Well, that's good. Miles, I wanted to talk. Daisy looked at her husband and was almost ready to tell him that she wanted a divorce. Can't it wait until tomorrow? It's already late, and I still have work to do, he replied. You're always busy, either at work or at home with your papers. Miles, haven't you noticed that I've become like a piece of furniture to you? Something you don't even notice. She couldn't hold back. He set the papers aside and looked at his wife. I work. I'm not drinking or cheating on you. Women always find a reason to be dissatisfied. What furniture? What nonsense? He said irritably. You don't pay any attention to me at all. Isn't that true? Well, should I forget about work and just sit with you every evening? He retorted. Miles, we live like neighbors. We haven't had sex in ages. Do you think these are normal relationships? Daisy raised her voice. Oh, so that's what it is. I see why you are so dissatisfied. He smirked. I'm tired. I have no strength left for anything. Tomorrow is a day off. I'll finish everything now and pay attention to you and more tomorrow, he said, returning his gaze to the documents. Daisy didn't say anything more. She headed to the shower and then to bed, where she had grown accustomed to sleeping alone. Despite Miles promising to pay attention to her tomorrow, she didn't feel any lighter. Everything felt off, and Oliver, with whom she had danced at the cafe, appeared in her mind again. Daisy was surprised by herself. She didn't know this man at all, had seen him only once in her life, yet some unknown force drew her to him. Suddenly, she felt ashamed of her thoughts and desires, as well as leaving her phone number for him. Daisy had always considered infidelity to be repulsive and an unforgivable betrayal. In her thoughts, she had already been unfaithful to Miles with Oliver. However, she immediately thought that her new acquaintance wouldn't contact her since he seemed disappointed when she mentioned her husband. It's for the best, she decided, hugging her pillow, and fell asleep. Miles kept his word. The entire next day, he didn't engage in work. dedicating all his attention to their daughter. "Well, who here wants some intimacy?" he asked when Daisy was already in bed, preparing to sleep. No one after such a question. Daisy thought silently, as if it was planned, not desired. Miles quickly joined her, slipping his hands under the covers. Still, despite the physical connection, Daisy derived no satisfaction from it. "Now, are you satisfied?" her husband asked after their brief encounter. "Miles, do you even desire me?" she inquired. "What a silly question. You're incomprehensible. Nothing is ever right," he grumbled, turning away. "Do you think our relationship is normal? Do you think everything is fine between us?" She couldn't hold back. Miles turned back to face her, looking into her eyes. "Decided to torture me? Fine. Speak your mind," he said. "Every woman wants to feel like a woman. Yet, we live like neighbors. You don't notice me. You come home from work, eat, and dive back into work. I understand the importance of work, but can't you pay attention to your family occasionally? I want sex, not on a schedule. Sometimes I feel like you don't need sex anymore. Or maybe you don't want me at all." "Daisy, I don't like your constant dissatisfaction. I don't drink, smoke, or cheat. I earn. I'm terribly tired. And we still have sex. But it's never enough for you," Miles responded. "Once every 2 weeks. When was the last time we went out together? When did you last approach me just to hug or talk with me?" "All right. Let's go to sleep. I'll make amends." Miles turned away from Daisy again. That night, Daisy dreamt of having sex with Oliver. Upon waking up, she didn't immediately realize it was a dream. Everything felt so real. Yet Miles was lying next to her, peacefully snoring. She looked at her husband and pondered. Was it enough that he was not a bad person? She wasn't happy with him, and it seemed unlikely that anything would change in their relationship. However, after their evening conversation, changes did occur, but not for long. For a brief period, Miles paid a bit more attention to Daisy. They went to a concert. He gave her flowers once, and sex was now twice a week, on Wednesdays and Saturdays. It wasn't spontaneous passion, and Daisy didn't desire such sex. Everything else felt like he was just making up for his mistakes. Thoughts of divorce were always on Daisy's mind. About a month after meeting, Oliver unexpectedly messaged her. It was quite surprising, and after a short exchange, Daisy agreed to meet him. It was a harmless meeting at a small cafe, where he invited her for dinner after work. "Why won't you divorce your husband?" he asked. "Where is this question coming from?" Daisy inquired, feeling awkward. "Because if everything were fine with your husband, you wouldn't be sitting here with me right now," he replied. "You don't seem like a woman looking for fleeting adventures." "You're right. I've thought many times about getting a divorce, but my husband is not a bad person, and we have a child, a settled life. It's not easy to just break everything apart." "Why did you agree to meet me then? Why did you invite me?" You didn't answer. Oliver slightly smiled, and Daisy remembered her dream involving him. Blushing a little. "You neither," she said, not knowing how to respond to his question. "You're considering having a lover but afraid to admit it to yourself because you think it's not right. Yet, you're afraid to divorce a husband you don't love." "I didn't think anything like that. And did you know I was married but still decided to meet me? And a month after we met." "Why now?" Daisy asked. "Well, first, I wasn't free at the time of our meeting. And second, I went on a business trip for 2 weeks," he replied. "Is that so? And now you're single?" Daisy, for some reason, was sure that Oliver had no one when they first met. "I wasn't married. We lived together, but our relationship had long had cracks. Even before I met you, I was planning to break up with her. Somehow, I thought you were not married, and I don't date married women. But then I thought and decided that I needed to take you away from a husband you are not happy with." "You immediately determined that I'm not happy with my husband." Does he really see me as unhappy? Daisy thought. Not immediately. But I figured it out. And it doesn't bother you that I have a young child? Nope. Doesn't bother me. Isn't it easier to find a single woman? Daisy asked. Easier. But I've already found you, he replied. Describing what was happening in Daisy's soul was challenging. She looked at Oliver, and everything inside her screamed yes. Today I'll tell my husband that I'll divorce him, and I marry you as soon as possible. Lowering her gaze, Daisy slowly stirred her coffee. If only she had met Oliver while not being married or without a daughter, then, oh, how hastily she had rushed into marrying Miles. She thought, are you afraid to start a new life? Oliver asked. Oliver, I barely know you, and, all in all, we've only known each other for about 2 hours. She replied, that's fixable. We'll have plenty of time to get to know each other better. If you're not happy with someone, what's the hesitation? Your daughter. You wouldn't want to deprive her father of father's rights. However, the decision is, of course, yours. You're drawn to me just as much as I am to you. Daisy raised her eyes and looked at Oliver. But that doesn't mean it will work out between us, she said. You know, sometimes it happens. You see something, like an item in a store, and you realize it's yours. There are many other good and beautiful things there, but somehow they're not quite right. And this one feels like it was made for you. In a word, it's yours. The same happens when you see a person, he said. Are you saying that when you saw me, you knew I was yours? Daisy blushed again. I think we both felt it together, he replied. He's right, she thought. That's exactly how it was. And now, looking at Oliver, Daisy wanted to drop everything and be with him. But first, she needed to gather the courage and end things with Miles. She felt sorry for him, sorry for her daughter. Her daughter. It was she who constantly held Daisy back from deciding on a divorce. Yet, Daisy was also afraid that Miles might want Maggie to stay with him. And given his professional connections, he could easily achieve that. Oliver, my husband may arrange it so that our daughter stays with him after the divorce, she said. Children always stay with their mothers if the mother is normal. Isn't that right? He replied. Yes. But my husband is a judge, and he has many lawyer friends. He can easily win custody. We live in his apartment. I'll be left with nothing to divide. I have an apartment. You can move in with me. Everything is solvable. It's not that easy to take a child away from a normal mother. I also have connections in this field, he calmly replied. So, move in together right away. Why delay? Decide for yourself. I'm not forcing you. I just voiced what I want. And being a lover to a married woman is not something I want. By the way, I don't have children yet, but I'm ready for them. Daisy, I'm ready for a family, not just spending time casually, Oliver replied. Daisy's phone rang. It was Miles. She answered, and he asked where she had disappeared, to which Daisy lied, saying she went for coffee with colleagues and would be home soon. I understand it's time to say goodbye, Oliver said. Yes, it's time for me to go, she replied. We'll get to know each other better, right? Can you find time for our communication? He asked. Oliver, I'll think it over and write to you. They left the cafe together and approached their cars, which were parked nearby. Oliver stood so close, and shivers ran down Daisy's body. She felt his desire as if she had sensed it, and her body responded. The woman took a step aside and opened her car. Goodbye, Daisy said. I'll be waiting for your decision, he replied, giving a slight smile. They got into their cars, and all the way home, Daisy could only think about Oliver and their conversation. Miles and Maggie were already home, and Daisy headed straight to the kitchen to warm up dinner for them. Miles, once again, began talking about his work, but Daisy wasn't paying attention. Another man entirely occupied her thoughts, and her husband seemed like a complete stranger. After dinner, she played with Maggie and then put her to bed. Miles, as usual, immersed himself in paperwork, while Daisy decided to watch a movie. Settling on the bed, she started flipping through channels and found some romantic drama. 10 minutes later, a message popped up on her phone. Daisy's heart immediately raced. She was sure it was a message from Oliver. Her intuition didn't fail her. "Hi. What are you up to?" He wrote. "Hi. Watching a movie." "And you?" she replied. "About love." "I'm just relaxing. Just started watching. Probably about love." "Where's your husband?" "Working. He usually goes to bed when I'm already asleep." "Always like that." "Almost." "Sorry for asking. Do you guys have sex at all? On Wednesdays and Saturdays?" "I don't get it. Do you have scheduled sex or something?" "It turns out that way. For a long time, it was just twice a month." "Tough. Sorry. But that's some nonsense." "I know. Let's not talk about it." "Okay. Shall we meet soon?" "And what will we do?" she asked. "We can take a walk by the bay. Then have dinner somewhere together. We'll talk, get to know each other." Daisy really wanted that, and she couldn't refuse. "Okay. I just don't know when yet," she replied. It wasn't easy to find time for such activities. She occasionally met with a friend, and Miles allowed her to attend those meetings without asking too many questions. "Try to make time soon. I'll be waiting." "I'll try. My husband is coming. Bye," she replied. Hearing footsteps, she put the phone under the pillow and stared at the TV. "Are you still not sleeping?" Miles asked. "No, I'm watching a movie," she replied. "I feel tired. I'm looking at papers, and I can't see anything. I want to go to sleep," he said, yawning. "Sure, go to bed," Daisy said. "Just turn off the TV." "I wanted to finish watching the movie." "I'll make it quieter," she said, taking the remote to lower the volume. "Daisy, you know that various sounds disturb me. Please turn it official." "Fine. I'll finish watching in the kitchen," she said, displeased, and abruptly got up from the bed. "What's with the tantrum?" Miles asked. "Nothing, Miles. Nothing has changed after our conversation," she said. "Here we go again. We recently went to the theater, and now we have sex twice a week regularly. And still, everything is not right for you. Do you really need to watch this movie here?" Miles replied. Daisy grabbed the remote and turned off the TV. "We went out once a year, and in your opinion, it's enough, and we can stay home for another year. Do you hear yourself? We have sex regularly on Wednesdays and Saturdays. I don't want any of that kind of sex at all. It's like a job for us. Miles, we live our lives separately. You're always in your papers and work, and I'm not interesting to you at all. I don't want this anymore," she said. "Do you want me to quit my job? Then you'll be dissatisfied with having less money." It was little sex. It was bad. It became more, and it's still bad. "Do you understand how exhausted I am?" he replied. "I understand. You can't earn all the money in the world. But can you understand that I haven't felt like a woman with you for a long time?" She almost screamed. "Miles, there is neither love nor understanding in our relationship. I can't live like this anymore." So you don't love me, and that's why you are constantly dissatisfied." "Clear," he frowned. "Listen to me. I want to be a woman who is entrusting to her husband." Daisy didn't dare to say, "Yes, I don't love you." "So, do you love me or not?" he asked. "And do you love me?" "I don't see or feel your love, just like I don't feel your love. We'll talk about it tomorrow. I really want to sleep," Miles stated. "Tomorrow won't change anything," she replied. Holding her phone, she went to the kitchen. The mood was spoiled. She had tried multiple times to improve her relationship with Miles, but his behavior and indifference pushed her towards another man. She thought, "Are you still awake?" She messaged Oliver, sitting at the kitchen table. "No, decided to watch a movie too. How's it going with your husband?" "Same. We don't understand each other. He went to sleep." "Oliver, let's meet the day after tomorrow." "Sure. What time and where?" I don't know yet. Tomorrow, I'll talk to the boss to let me leave by noon. Can you make it by 1 p.m.? I have a flexible schedule, so any time works for me. Great. I'll let you know tomorrow then. Good night. Daisy smiled after reading the message. Her mood significantly improved. In the morning, Daisy and Miles hardly spoke. They silently had breakfast, and then she quickly got ready, took her daughter to daycare, and went to work. Her first stop was the boss's office to request time off for tomorrow. Daisy, I was just about to call you, he began. Angela got appendicitis last night, so you'll have to step in. Tomorrow, you're going with me on a business trip for 3 days. Mr. Staunton, I wanted to ask for just half a day off tomorrow. I can't go for 3 days. I have a little child. Daisy didn't want to go on a business trip. I know. But there's no one else. I'll give you a bonus, 2 extra days off. Help us out, the director insisted. This is so unexpected. I need to talk to my husband, Daisy, just for 3 days. Talk, but remember that work is work, and we have business trips, and you knew that. You can leave after lunch today, and tomorrow, the plane leaves at 7 in the morning. Daisy called her husband, but he didn't answer. Miles called back an hour later. Is it urgent? I have the next meeting in 10 minutes. He said, it's urgent. They're forcing me to go on a 3-day business trip tomorrow. She replied, why? You've never traveled for work. Assistant boss ended up in the hospital. She used to go on these trips before and was supposed to go now. I really don't want to go anywhere, but I'm afraid there are no other options here. And what about your child? You could say you have no one to leave your daughter with. He knows I have a child. Apparently, I also have a husband. Miles, you'll have to take care of Maggie alone for 3 days. This is really inconvenient right now, as it is. 3 days, not a week. I have to go. We'll talk at home, he replied. Daisy came home early and, as a first step, packed a small travel bag. Then she decided to message Oliver. Hi. We won't be able to meet in the next few days. I'm being sent on a business trip for 3 days starting tomorrow. She wrote, hi. That's a pity. He replied, it all happened suddenly. Where will you stay there? In some hotel. Besides meeting with the boss at 5 in the morning at the airport and the flight at 7. I don't know anything else. I was thinking, maybe we can chat these 3 days. You won't be working until late at night there, right? No, of course not. Do you want to come too? Daisy asked, feeling pleased that Oliver was willing to break away and come to another city for her. Why not? I'll be working during the day, and then we can spend time together. We can stroll around the city, find out which hotel you'll be staying at, so I can book a room there or nearby. Oliver suggested. I'll find out now. Daisy immediately called her boss and then messaged Oliver the hotel name. Okay, we'll talk later. I'll find a room, he replied. Shortly before her husband's arrival, Daisy messaged Oliver. The hotel where Daisy planned to stay had no available rooms, but Oliver managed to rent an apartment nearby. How pleasant it was that a man would go to such lengths for her. Daisy was in a great mood, feeling like a woman who could captivate a man's interest. Miles returned home in a gloomy mood. He barely spoke to his wife. Only when Maggie fell asleep did he tell Daisy that he wanted to talk. Daisy, you are right in many ways. Our relationship has become dull. I was thinking, maybe we could take a short trip somewhere for a week. He began. When? She asked. I have vacation in 3 months. If you can take a week off, we can go to the seaside. And what about before that? Miles, nothing will change. I'll try to spend more time with you. I hope you're not planning to divorce me, he said, looking at Daisy. I won't lie. I've been thinking about it, she admitted, and he paled. Oh, well, that's charming. If I'm not happy with you, how else? Endure everything I don't like and pretend everything is fine. Daisy replied. Don't forget, we have a daughter. Marriage is not a perpetual celebration. Complaints are always on my side. And you don't notice how cold you've become. You should work on yourself too, Daisy. I don't see love from your side either. There. We are both unhappy with each other. So, stop. Miles interrupted her. When you return from your business trip, let's discuss everything calmly. I don't want a divorce. We have a daughter. At least for her sake, we need to try and improve our relationship. I no longer believe that they can be improved, Daisy said, walking to the window. We need to try for Maggie. I don't want my child to live apart from me, he replied, and I want to be loved and desired, not live like neighbors for the sake of our daughter, Daisy said. So, you need to make an effort for that. I also want to feel that a woman loves me. I never felt that from you at all. Either they love or they don't. You can't force it. Teenage reasoning. Love is not about holding hands in the park and gazing at the stars, drowning in pink dreams. That fades away. Relationships require work. Constant work. We need to work together on our relationship. Miles said, maybe I want to drown in pink dreams at least sometimes. Daisy turned abruptly. Any woman, at any age, wants romance, she said, looking at the clock. We'll discuss everything after you return. It's time for you to go to bed. You have to get up early tomorrow. It's time, Daisy replied, and went to the bedroom. She already wanted to fly away quickly and meet Oliver. She didn't really know him, and rushing was scary. But she couldn't be with Miles anymore. Daisy understood that love between them would not appear, and she no longer wanted to be together for the sake of the child. The next day was hectic. By evening, Daisy was exhausted. She had no desire to stroll around the city. After taking a shower in her room, she flopped onto the bed and called Oliver. Hey, what time should I pick you up? He asked. Oliver, I'm so tired. Not sure I can handle a work, she replied. Then come to my place. I'll arrange dinner and give you a massage, he suggested. A massage would be very welcome. But Daisy was hesitant to rush into everything else, despite her desire for closeness with Oliver. On the other hand, Daisy decided that upon returning home, she would tell Miles that she had decided to file for divorce, hoping they could peacefully resolve everything, and he wouldn't insist on keeping Maggie with him. Okay, she agreed. I'll meet you near the hotel. Let me know when. I'll be ready in half an hour. Seeing Oliver, Daisy got nervous. Her heart started beating faster. Hi, he said and tried to kiss her. But she took a step back. Not here. What if the boss sees us? She said. Sorry. Didn't think about that, he replied. Shall we grab dinner somewhere or order in? He suggested. Let's order in. Okay. What do you want? I was craving a burrito. Sometimes I really want one, Daisy answered with a smile. Then we'll get some on the way. There's a place near the apartment I rented that sells burritos, he replied, smiling back at her. They worked leisurely, and Daisy talked about her crazy day. She felt like her fatigue had magically disappeared. Right now, she felt very happy. Barely finishing her meal, Miles called her. It felt awkward to talk to him in front of Oliver, but Daisy decided to answer. Husband's calling, she told Oliver, noticing that he immediately stopped smiling. How are you doing? Miles asked. Everything's fine. How's Maggie? Playing in her room. What are you up to? It was distasteful to lie, but telling the truth wasn't an option either. Just relaxing, Daisy replied. Daisy, I've rented a cottage outside the city for the next weekend. We'll all go together and relax, Miles suggested. Got it, Daisy replied. Are you still upset? Miles asked. No, I'm just tired from today, she answered. All right, then, rest up, he replied. Having just finished her conversation with her husband, Daisy felt nervous when Oliver approached her. He embraced her, and their lips met in a kiss. The sensations were incredible, unlike anything Daisy had experienced with her husband. Her head was spinning, and the ground seemed to vanish beneath her. However, when Oliver's hands ventured under her blouse, She suddenly awoke from the dream, breaking off the kiss and distancing herself. It was challenging because Daisy felt an incredible attraction to this man. She wanted him, but in her mind appeared the images of Miles and Maggie. "Oliver, I can't do this. I need to end things with my husband first," she uttered. "And when will that happen?" he asked, looking into her eyes. "Right after I return," she said. "Sure about that?" "Yes. Understand me. It's not easy to change your life so abruptly, especially when we barely know each other," she replied. "All right." Oliver sat at the table, and Daisy sat across from him. "I run websites and various computer programs, work for myself. I have an apartment and a car, love to travel, go camping outside the city, fishing. I lived with a girl for 4 years. We broke up mainly because she loved clubs and parties, and I got tired of going to them with her. What else do you want to know about me? Ask. Are you angry with me?" Daisy asked. The man was clearly in a bad mood. "I just don't understand. You want me as much as I want you, but you're pushing me away," he replied. "Regardless of who my husband is and what I feel for him, he's the father of my daughter, and we've lived together for more than 5 years. I can't do this behind his back. First, I'll tell him I want a divorce, and then I can start new relationships. I hope you won't delay with that," Oliver said. "I won't. I can't live with him anymore. In any case, it would be indecent on your part. But understand me too, Oliver. I think I should go back to the hotel. I have work tomorrow, and I need to get some rest. I'll walk you back. Tomorrow, shall we explore the city?" "Of course, let's do that." Daisy smiled. They headed towards the hotel. "Until tomorrow then," said Oliver. His expression was still gloomy. "Until tomorrow," replied Daisy, kissing him on the lips. "Amen." Encouraging. Oliver smiled. "I'll be looking forward to tomorrow night," she said, and entered the hotel. It took Daisy a long time to fall asleep. How much she wanted to forget about everything and go to Oliver, making love to him all night. She had already betrayed her husband in her thoughts, so she needed to decide to change her life and talk to Miles about Maggie. Despite her overwhelming desire for Oliver, Daisy believed she had done the right thing by refusing him tonight. He would endure it if he truly needed her. When the long-awaited evening arrived, Daisy met Oliver again, and they went for a walk together. They talked a lot, and it seemed to Daisy that she had grown wings. If she hadn't hurried and married Miles, everything would be much simpler now, she thought. Love doesn't always come at the right time, but regardless, she couldn't resist it. "I've never had this happen before," Oliver said when they returned to the hotel. "What do you mean?" Daisy asked. "Well, communicating like this without, anything else," he replied with a smile. "I understand, but I need some time. I'm a man. I want you. I'll wait, of course, until you sort things out with your husband. But I won't wait too long," he said. "It won't take long," Daisy replied, kissing him goodbye. The business trip came to an end, and as Daisy sat on the plane, she smiled, thinking about Oliver. She was determined to part ways with her husband and delve into a new relationship with the man who had swept her off her feet. However, upon returning home, thoughts of her daughter, who loved her father. Daisy got up from her chair, washed the dishes, and went to her husband. He was talking about some changes in their relationship, but he quickly went back to sorting through his papers. The way he greeted her after the business trip gave Daisy determination. "Miles, please stop," she said. "Daisy, give me just half an hour, and we'll talk about everything," he replied. "Fine." Daisy went into the bedroom and turned on the TV. Miles came to her almost an hour later. He had a mysterious smile on his lips, and he was holding something in his fist. "I have a gift for you," he said, handing his wife a small box. Seeing a ring inside, Daisy closed the box and returned it to her husband. "Miles, we need to get a divorce," she said. "But we agreed to discuss everything when you return," he said, frowning. You decided that, but I don't see the point in it. Miles, I don't want to continue like this. I can't. Daisy sighed and covered her face with her palms. Found yourself another man? He asked, throwing the ring box against the wall. Daisy removed her hands from her face and looked at her husband. I fell in love, and I want to be with him. She honestly replied. So, you went away with him, lied to me about a business trip, abandoned your child. Damn you, Daisy. Miles reddened with anger. No, I really went on a business trip. Daisy replied. And how long have you been cheating on me? Miles blushed even more. I haven't cheated on you. I wanted to sort things out with you first and then start a new relationship. Do you have a platonic love affair? Miles laughed. Lying is ridiculous, Daisy. I'm not an idiot. I'm not lying. I wanted to be honest with you first, but I cheated only in my heart. Miles, I want us to peacefully part ways. You don't love me anyway. I loved you, just apparently not in the way you needed. It doesn't matter now. In short, Maggie won't live with your lover, so she'll stay with me. Don't even try to object. I'll get custody of her, and you can go wherever you want to your lover. No one is holding you, Miles said, opening the closet, and then started throwing Daisy's clothes out of it. Daisy turned pale. This was what she feared the most. Miles, please, let's talk normally. You can see Maggie whenever you want, but there's no need for this. I'm her mother. She'll suffer without me. Daisy said in a frightened voice. My daughter won't go to live with your lover. The fact that you found some love there doesn't give you the right to deprive the child of her father. I won't be a part-time dad. You go wherever you want, but Maggie won't leave this apartment. Miles declared. Do you want to hurt me this way? Punish me. Think about Maggie. Daisy barely held back her tears. And did you think about her when you got yourself a lover? I've said everything. Miles continued to throw his wife's clothes out of the closet. You'll find yourself a woman too. Do you think Maggie will be fine with another woman? Not found yet. Unlike you, I haven't cheated on you. I won't leave without Maggie. The child will stay with me. Don't count on it. Miles went into the corridor to get the suitcase. Daisy sat on the bed, trembling. An internal panic had taken hold of her. Staying here was the last thing she wanted right now, but she couldn't leave her daughter. Miles grabbed Daisy's elbow roughly and dragged her toward the front door. Let me go, Daisy said. Then go by yourself. Or have you decided you can stay here after betraying me? Miles released his grip, stopping in his tracks. I didn't betray you. I wanted to be honest, and you honest. I was thinking about how to keep our family together, and you were thinking about another man. You didn't love me. You should have said so instead of pushing me about working too much. Leave, Miles interrupted her. You have no right to take my daughter away from me. I'll leave, but I'll come back for Maggie. You're dreaming. Through the court, you'll have contact with the child. I won't deprive you of your daughter, but she won't live with another man. Whether you love me or not, I'm her father, and she'll stay here. You can communicate with her, but without your lover. Miles went to the front door and opened it. Come on, leave. He directed a stern gaze at his wife. I'll be back for Maggie tomorrow. Daisy took her suitcase and left the apartment. She won't go anywhere with you, Miles said and slammed the door. Daisy got into the car and called Oliver. He didn't answer, and suddenly Daisy burst into tears. Once again, she regretted marrying Miles and having a child with him. She was convinced he would win custody of Maggie. A vicious circle. She couldn't live with him anymore, and she didn't want to live without her daughter. The thought of becoming a visiting mom was terrifying. Oliver called back after about 10 minutes. Hey, I was in the shower. How are you? He asked. I left my husband, Daisy replied, choking back tears. Are you crying? What happened? Did he hurt you? Oliver's voice sounded concerned. No, he won't give me our daughter. Daisy burst into tears again. He'll give in. He can't hide her. Come to my place. Oliver dictated his address. I'll calm down a bit and then come. Daisy replied, trying to compose herself. Everything will be fine. He has no right to deny you access to your daughter. He's a judge. And he has a lot of connections. He can't strip you of parental rights, no matter who he is. Come over. Or should I come to pick you up? I'm already in the car. I'll be there soon. Daisy sighed heavily. She repeated to herself that she needed to calm down. Wiping her tear-stained face, Daisy started the car and headed towards the one her soul longed for. Thoughts of her daughter never left her for a moment, and she constantly replayed various scenarios in her mind that could help her retain custody of Maggie in court. Oliver's house was not far away when suddenly, at a pedestrian crossing, almost in front of Daisy's car, an elderly woman decided to cross the road. Daisy slammed on the brakes abruptly. Realizing that she might hit the old lady, she sharply turned the steering wheel to the right but couldn't turn it back in time, crashing into a tree and veering off the road. Pain pierced through her entire body, and her head felt like it was splitting open. Daisy struggled to open her eyes. Everything was blurry, and she couldn't understand where she was. "Do you hear me?" asked a male voice, and Daisy closed her eyes and opened them again. Seeing the silhouette of a man in white, she remembered what had happened. "Do you hear me?" the man asked again. "Yes," she moaned. "Good. Can you see well?" The man waved his hand in front of her face. "Not very well," she replied with difficulty, feeling intense pain in her right shoulder. What happened to me?" she asked quietly. "You got off relatively easy. You have a concussion, a broken collarbone, and 2 broken ribs," he replied. "I need to make a call." Daisy closed her eyes again. Speaking was very difficult. "We've already called your husband. He's sitting in the corridor outside your room. You've regained consciousness. You can talk to him, but not for long. I need my phone." "Where is it?" Daisy answered almost in a whisper. "Your belongings are in the bedside table. I'll summon a nurse now, and they will give you a painkiller injection. I'll also inform your husband that he can come in," the doctor said, promptly leaving the room. "How are you?" Daisy heard Miles' soft voice and opened her eyes again. "Everything is blurry, and it hurts a lot," she replied, wincing in pain. "Everything will be fine. You'll recover quickly." "I talked to the doctor," Miles said, sitting beside the bed. "It's not my fault. She decided to cross the road, and I would have hit her if—" Daisy didn't finish her sentence and winced again, tears streaming from her eyes due to the pain. "Easy. Don't talk if it hurts. There were cameras there. You're not to blame. Daisy, you had a shock, and you lost consciousness, but your internal organs are fine. A few fractures, bruises, and a concussion. The impact wasn't very strong," Miles said, lightly touching her left hand. "Everything will be fine. Now you need more rest." A nurse entered the room and gave Daisy a painkiller injection. "You're in a separate room. No one will bother you," Miles said when the nurse left. "Where's Maggie?" Daisy asked. "I asked Mom to come. She'll stay with us for a while. Don't worry. If you want, I can stay here with you until morning." "It's not necessary," Daisy replied and closed her eyes. She really wanted to sleep, and she didn't want Miles to stay here. "Okay, I'll come tomorrow then. Rest well." He removed his hand from hers and left the room. It was very difficult for Daisy to retrieve her phone from the nightstand to call Oliver, but she had to let him know what had happened. Daisy's hand was trembling slightly, but she managed to unlock the screen. There were 8 missed calls and messages from Oliver. Daisy called him right away. "Hey, I waited for you half the night. Called many times. Where are you? Are you okay?" He immediately asked. "I had an accident. I'm in the hospital now," Daisy replied. "What? How did that happen?" His voice was agitated. "Some crazy old lady decided to dash in front of me. Daisy sighed and closed her eyes. Did you get hurt badly? Bruises, broken ribs and collarbone, concussion, poor thing. In which hospital are you? On Crick Avenue. My husband was informed. He came by. I have a separate room. Can I come over? Of course. I would really like you to come, but it's better tomorrow. I'm about to fall asleep now. My eyes are closing. Daisy said. What time should I come? Oliver asked. I'll call you tomorrow. All right. Take care there, he replied. I'm trying. Bye. Daisy placed the phone on the nightstand. In the morning, Daisy felt a bit better. At least, she could see clear silhouettes instead of blurry ones. Her head and body still ached, but Daisy felt it was less than yesterday. She took her phone and called Miles to find out when he planned to come. I finish at 4 today. I'll come straight to you. How are you feeling? He asked. A little better. How is Maggie? Will you bring her? Daisy really wanted to see her daughter. Do you think it's worth bringing her? She might get upset and scared seeing you all plastered and bandaged. Miles replied. I didn't think about that. Maybe it's indeed better for her not to see me like this. Daisy agreed with her husband. I told her you went on another business trip. It's better to talk to her on the phone when she returns from daycare. Miles suggested. Okay. Daisy replied. What do you want me to bring you? Miles asked. I don't want anything. I don't need anything. She answered. Okay. I'll decide what to bring. Rest. After finishing the conversation with her husband, Daisy immediately called Oliver and told him he could come before 4. Oliver appeared at the doorway an hour later. In his hands, he carried a bag containing juice, strawberries, and bananas. How are you? He asked, looking at her. As you can see, I resemble more of a mummy than a human, she said, giving a faint smile. The main thing is that you're alive, and the fractures will heal. How long do they say you'll stay here? I don't know. I haven't asked the doctor yet. Did your husband push you to this point? I didn't speed. Nobody was planning to cross the road at that crossing. And suddenly, this old woman appeared out of nowhere. I would have hit her if I hadn't swerved. I thought about passing her, but I turned the wheel too much and ended up hitting a tree. Everything happened so fast. I was upset about my daughter. Miles packed my suitcase and kicked me out of the apartment. He was furious, said that the child would stay with him. But the accident didn't happen because of that. Now he got you a private room and is playing the caring husband. Oliver, he's not a bad person. We just don't love each other. And the fact that I cheated on him drove him mad. Well, you haven't actually cheated yet, he remarked. For him, it looks like I have. I told him I want to be with another man. And, in a way, I did betray him in my heart, Daisy said, smiling sadly. Nobody. Do you want some strawberries? Without waiting for an answer, Oliver approached, took the berries, and began to feed them to Daisy. Daisy had almost finished the strawberries, and she and Oliver chatted for about an hour before he left. The nurse came in, and after another injection, Daisy fell asleep again and woke up when Miles arrived. Noticing the juice and bananas on the table, he didn't say anything, as if they weren't there. How are you? He asked, placing another juice, a water bottle, and a pastry that Daisy loved on the table. Then he took out a container with puri and roast beef. Mom cooked it today. I'm sure you haven't eaten anything. I did. Porridge, strawberries, and broth, replied Daisy. That must have been a while ago, Miles said. Sitting next to his wife, he started feeding her. Daisy didn't resist. Miles, have you told everything to Mom? She asked. No, he replied, continuing to feed her. Thanks for the private room, Daisy said. Daisy, whatever happens, you're not a stranger to me, and you're the mother of my child. Besides, for now, you're still my wife, he replied very reservedly. If it's guilt you're feeling, no guilt. Don't make things up. Once you are back on your feet, we can talk about everything. Right now, your recovery is the most important thing, okay? Let's leave the talks for later. Is the car completely wrecked? She asked. I've already taken it to the repair shop. I spoke with the doctor before coming to you. They'll discharge you in about a week, but you'll have to stay at home for a while to recover. Fractures don't heal quickly. How about spending this time on a spa resort? Everything will heal faster there. Fresh air, various procedures. I haven't thought about it. I can't even get up now, Daisy replied. Indeed, where would she go after the hospital? She suddenly thought, think about it. Maggie and I could stay with you there. Your vacation is in 3 months. Daisy was surprised. I didn't tell you. I'm quitting. Found a job at a firm. I'll be the head of the legal department. The owner of the company is my good friend. I'll start working for him in a month. You didn't want to sit in an office. Daisy was even more surprised. I changed my mind. Talk less. Eat more, he said, continuing to feed Daisy. I don't want to eat more, she replied. There's just a little left. Don't be like a child, Miles insisted. Soon, Miles left, leaving Daisy to rest. She closed her eyes. It would be better if he didn't care about her now, she thought. It would be easier for her, and the burden of guilt for her betrayal wouldn't weigh so heavily on her soul. After all, Miles was not a stranger to her, and there were once genuinely happy moments in their lives. She respected him, treated him like a close friend, and yet, deciding to divorce him was not easy. That's why she couldn't make that decision quickly before Oliver appeared in her life. Despite confessing to her husband that she loved someone else, he didn't leave her now, and Daisy was tormented by feelings of guilt. In the morning, upon waking up, she grabbed her phone. There were 3 missed calls and a message from Daisy. Hey, are you okay? I've been calling, and you're not picking up. He wrote, Hi. I was sleeping, she replied. What time can I come over? My husband should be here soon. Can you make it at 7? Isn't it too late? It's fine. Okay. I'll be there at 7. Daisy put the phone down and closed her eyes. How awful to spend days here and feel so helpless, she thought. Hello. Oliver entered the room. Didn't know your preferences, so I brought a couple of yogurts and mango, he said. Thank you. I love all of this, Daisy replied with a smile. Well, then let me peel the mango for you. He peeled the mango and began to feed Daisy with it. How was your day? Feeling any better? He asked. Just a bit. Still feels like a train ran over me, she admitted. What does your husband say about it? He wants to send me at spa resort after the hospital. He mentioned it yesterday. Good idea. I think you should go. It will speed up your recovery. Yes, but it's for about 3 weeks. We won't see each other for so long. Daisy didn't like the sound of it. But it's good for your health, he replied. He also wants to go there with our daughter. Oliver, I miss Maggie so much, and I want to go home after the hospital. Tell him not to go with you. And of course, it's better for you to go home after the hospital if he doesn't mind. I understand your daughter is important to you. You won't be able to visit me at home and at resort. What are we going to do? Daisy asked. Not now. First, you need to recover, and then we'll figure everything out. We'll keep in touch, Oliver assured her. It's not working out well. Using the services of the husband I plan to leave, Daisy sighed. But you won't be coming to me after the hospital. He won't let your daughter go with you, and you'll worry about that. You need to get back on your feet first, and then deal with the divorce, property division, and custody rights, Oliver advised. Well, we have nothing to divide. Just my car, Daisy said. And the apartment is not shared. Right. No, it's his. I'm not an expert in these matters, but I don't think it will affect your rights to the child. I told you, I have a friend who is a lawyer. We'll consult with him later. Right now, the most important thing for you is to focus on yourself. We'll figure out the rest later, Oliver said, looking at his watch. I have another meeting scheduled for today. I should go. What time should I come tomorrow? Before 4. Daisy really didn't want Oliver to leave right now. Could you postpone your meeting and stay with me a little longer? She asked. I'll stay a bit longer tomorrow, but rescheduling the meeting now wouldn't be right. The person is probably already on their way. It's work. Want me to turn on the TV? Let me find a movie for you. Oliver took the remote and turned on the TV. The movie Gone with the Wind was playing on one of the channels, and Daisy decided to watch it. Oliver gave Daisy a gentle kiss on the lips. Until tomorrow, she said sadly. Until tomorrow, he replied and left. The next day, Oliver came to Daisy around noon and stayed with her until 2:30. They talked a lot, and then he mentioned that he would be away for 2 days. His cousin's anniversary. I'll call you, he said. Okay, she replied. Now, when she felt so unwell, she wanted to see her beloved constantly, especially since they wouldn't be able to see each other for a long time soon. Of course, his cousin's anniversary was an important event, but she needed his care so much right now. Daisy didn't bring up anything with Oliver. Being in Daisy's hospital room had become unbearably tedious. Miles visited every day, and Oliver called her. Their conversations were brief, yet Daisy felt a sense of melancholy, despite his promise to visit her upon his return. She also understood that she would go home after leaving the hospital, even if Oliver suddenly suggested taking her with him. It would take a long time for her to recover. Would he wait for her all this time? How could she distance herself from Miles, who hadn't abandoned her in this difficult situation? Numerous questions swirled in her mind, but there were no answers yet. Hello. How are you holding up here? Oliver asked with a smile as he entered Daisy's hospital room. Like a log, Daisy replied, smiling back. Is it a bit easier now? Not too painful? Oliver inquired. A bit easier. Any idea when they'll discharge you? Not sure yet. Hopefully soon. I don't see much difference between lying here or being at home, Daisy replied. Your husband will definitely take you home. Yes. This question instantly soured Daisy's mood. Oliver, doesn't it seem wrong in the current situation? She asked. What can we do? He asked. Everything has become so tangled. Will you wait for a month or even more until I get back in shape? Then we'll have to deal with Maggie and the divorce. Daisy, I really like you, and I'd like something to work out between us. But honestly, everything is too complicated, and you yourself don't know what you want. It's stressful. Oliver confessed. I understand that in my current broken state, I'm not particularly appealing to you, she replied. I didn't say that. Oliver frowned. So, are you willing to wait for my recovery and then help me with my daughter? Daisy asked. Oliver looked away. Daisy indeed appealed to him greatly, but everything with her was too complex. Let me take you home from the hospital. Will you agree to that? He said, looking back at her. Daisy remained silent. She felt like crying. Everything had become so confusing for her. She couldn't go to him. Not now. You're silent. That's the answer. I brought strawberries. Would you like some? Oliver said. Oliver, I want to come to you, but I can't because of my daughter, she said. That's what I mean, too many complications. He replied. Everything is solvable. We just need time. You haven't answered. Are you willing to wait until I get back on my feet? Daisy insisted. Is there a point in waiting for something? He asked. Daisy, let's not talk about it now. Sorting out relationships that don't exist yet seems foolish. You can't divorce now or move in with me. If your husband uses your daughter to manipulate you, I highly doubt you'll leave him at all. You won't want to live separately from her, right? I won't want to. But I hope we can settle everything peacefully with Miles. Daisy barely held back her tears. Better eat some strawberries and don't burden yourself and me with this, Oliver said, feeding Daisy the berries. Thank you, Daisy said. You're welcome. Rest, and I'll go now. He smiled and headed to the door. Daisy watched him leave, and at that moment, it seemed to her that nothing would work out between them. Why did she meet him at such an inconvenient time? Daisy wondered, and tears streamed down her cheeks. The next day, Oliver didn't call or message. And by noon, Daisy couldn't resist and messaged him herself. Hi. Are you coming over today? Hi. I need to finish an order urgently. I can only come in the evening. Okay. When will your husband leave? He doesn't stay long. I think you can come around 6. Daisy replied. Okay. Daisy sighed and put away her phone. It seemed to her that Oliver might not be very eager to come to her. At 4:30, Miles arrived. I talked to the doctor. You can be discharged the day after tomorrow, he said. Finally, she replied. Miles approached his wife and sat beside her. Daisy, are you sure you want to be picked up, or will you go to your guy? He asked. Daisy looked at her husband, and tears welled up in her eyes again. You don't have to pick me up, but Maggie, I miss her so much. Daisy couldn't hold back her tears. That's it. Don't cry. Daisy, calm down. We'll go home, and you'll see Maggie. She misses you too, Miles replied. After regaining her composure, Daisy burst into tears again. Is something wrong? Miles asked. Miles, do you still want to fight for custody of Maggie? Won't you let her live with me? Daisy's voice trembled. We'll discuss everything later, he said, frowning. I want to know now. Have you changed your mind? Daisy insisted. I said not now. Once you recover, we'll talk. Have you already filed for divorce? Daisy asked her husband. No. Do you want to handle the divorce now as well? Better later. Just asked. Daisy said quietly. Is your friend rushing you? How does he feel about you coming home after the hospital? Miles, I don't want to discuss this. Why? Has he already run away? Miles, okay, later. I've been thinking. It's better for you to go at resort when the cast is removed. We should buy tickets now. I don't want to go anywhere. Daisy replied. Too bad. Today you are clearly in a bad mood. And I'll take care of the tickets. Daisy, I'm not going to hold you back. We'll figure everything out normally. Calm down. Miles put his hand on his wife's hand. I've thought a lot about everything and realized that I'm to blame in many ways. If you love someone else, I won't stand in your way. But you have to understand me too. I don't want my daughter to live with another Manuel. I don't know yet how we'll solve the issue with our daughter so that the decision suits both of us, he said. And I don't know how, but I want us to peacefully resolve everything, Daisy replied, looking into her husband's eyes. That's how it will be. Don't worry and think about yourself and your health now. Miles smiled. Let's part like civilized people, without scandals. And now, have a quiet meal, he said. Miles, did you change your job because of me? Daisy asked after eating. Because of all of us, I thought. Well, it doesn't matter now. Rest and see you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. Miles left, and Daisy closed her eyes, letting out a heavy sigh. Then she turned on the television. She needed to distract herself. When the movie ended, she looked at the clock. It was 7 o'clock, and Oliver still hadn't come. Daisy picked up her phone and called him. Hello, he answered with a sleepy voice. Damn, it's already 7. Oliver yawned. I laid down for a little rest and dozed official. I was working on the website. Let's meet tomorrow morning. Okay, tomorrow it is. Did I wake you up? No problem. I can go back to sleep. You rest there and don't stress out. See you tomorrow, Oliver. See you tomorrow. Oliver came in the morning. As promised, I'll be discharged tomorrow, she said. Great. Time flies. Soon everything will heal, and you'll be running around, he replied. I hope so. Now we won't see each other for a long time, she sadly said, not taking her eyes off Oliver. It seems so. He poured tea for Daisy and helped her sit. Yesterday my husband said he doesn't want scandals, that will part with him peacefully, she said. That's good. Are you sure you want to divorce him? He asked. I want to be with you, but I can't do it right now. You know that. I know. I have a meeting soon. I'll go. So quickly. You just came, Daisy said, disappointed. Yes, but work needs to be done. I'll call you tomorrow. Oliver left without even kissing Daisy. She understood perfectly well that no man would like the idea of his potential partner staying for a long time in her husband's house, especially if they were going to divorce. The journey home for Daisy was excruciating, but once in her bed, she breathed a sigh of relief. I'll sleep on the sofa in the living room for now, Miles told her. Maybe you could pick up Maggie from daycare a bit earlier today. I've missed her terribly, Daisy said. I'll pick her up. Mom will be back from the store, and I'll go get her. Do you need anything? Something to bring? Just water. Miles went to the kitchen and returned with a glass of water. We need to buy a bell. If you need anything, ring it, he said with a smile. Daisy laughed. I can get what I need myself. I want to move, even just a little, she replied. Nevertheless, it's better for you to lie down and not strain yourself. Everything is already swollen and gone numb. I want to get rid of the cast. You'll get it official. The main thing is for everything to heal correctly. We also need to apply ointment to your bruises. Let's do that now, Miles said, taking a tube of ointment. It will take a while for these bruises to fade. Daisy sighed, and Miles began gently applying the ointment to her bruises. They're already turning yellow. Miles finished applying the ointment and put it away. Should Mom stay or leave? You decide, Daisy replied. I know you don't like it when one of the parents lives with us, but I think it's appropriate now. I can't cook at all. Miles, did you tell your mom anything yet? Daisy asked. No. I'll tell her when you get better. Have you told yours that we're getting a divorce? No. I decided to tell them later. At that moment, Miles opened the front door, and his mother entered the apartment. She left a bag with groceries in the hallway and hurried into the bedroom where Daisy was lying. Daisy, my poor dear, she said, kissing her on the cheek. When Miles said what happened to you, I nearly had a heart attack. I'll go get Maggie, Miles said. What will we tell her about me? Daisy asked. Daisy, we told her yesterday that Mom fell and got badly bruised, her mother-in-law replied. While Miles was away and his mother was preparing lunch, Daisy decided to message Oliver. Hi, I'm already home. How are you? Hi, I'm at work. Daisy didn't know what else to say. She put her phone aside. Oliver remained silent, lying alone in bed. Daisy pondered her life and the concept of love. She recalled the time before Maggie's birth when things were relatively good with Miles, despite her lack of love for him. Then, Daisy thought about her business trip, how she and Oliver strolled through the city, how good she felt being with him. For Daisy, a man's attention had always been crucial. Only when she had it could she feel like a woman desired, loved, interesting. Now, she had ceased to be interesting to Oliver, and Daisy understood him. It was sad. If only she weren't married with a child, things might have turned out differently. Mummy. Maggie rushed into the bedroom and climbed onto the bed. Maggie, be careful. Don't hurt Mummy. Miles followed his daughter into the room. Daisy embraced her daughter with her healthy arm. My dear, I missed you so much, she said, smiling and kissing Maggie on the cheek. I missed you too. Mom, what happened to your arm? Maggie asked. It's in a cast. I broke it, and to let it heal properly, I have to wear a cast, Daisy replied. Did you fall so hard that your arm broke? Maggie inquired. Yes, but it will heal soon. Tell me what you've been up to while I was away. Maggie began her story, and Daisy gently stroked her daughter's hair with her healthy hand, thinking that she could never live without her little girl. The next evening, Oliver showed up late. He sent a message, and Daisy was inexplicably afraid to read it. A sense of unease enveloped her, but she opened the message. Daisy, hello. I've realized that things won't work out between us. I believe you understand that too. Get well. Bye. Daisy's hands trembled. Tears welled up in her eyes. Yes, she understood, but she wished everything would work out. She wanted to be happy, desperately craving love. And no, She was utterly unwanted by anyone. Hearing footsteps approaching the room, Daisy quickly wiped away her tears and stared at the TV, pretending to watch a movie. "You're not asleep yet?" Miles asked, entering the bedroom. "No." "Tired of sleeping already?" Daisy replied. "Were you crying?" The man looked closely at his wife's face. "No," she lied. "Do you need anything?" "I want to lie down to sleep. I have to get up early tomorrow." "Nothing. Thank you. Good night." "Well, if you say so. Good night." Miles left, and Daisy burst into tears, not expecting her husband to return. What happened? Miles sat on the bed, and Daisy turned away, wiping her tears. Her whole body ached, but her soul hurt even more. "Nothing. Go to sleep, Miles. You need to wake up early," she replied, sniffing. "Did he dump you?" Miles guessed. Daisy turned her tear-streaked face toward him. "Are you going to revel in it?" she asked. "No, I'm not. I know how awful it is when your loved ones leave," he said, looking into her eyes. "Did you ever love me, Miles? You didn't notice me. I know. Devoid of romance. Maybe that's why you didn't love me. Want me to bring you a tranquilizer?" "No need." Daisy sighed. "If he truly loved you, he wouldn't have left. So don't worry. You'll find what you need," Miles said, giving her a faint smile. "And don't worry. I won't kick you out of the apartment. We'll live as friends when you return from your resort." What incredible relief Daisy felt when she finally had the cast removed. All her broken bones had healed correctly, and it was time to go on a 3-week vacation. "I really don't want to leave Maggie again," she told Miles when their daughter was already asleep. "We'll come to visit you over the weekend. You'll have plenty of procedures there, so you won't notice how the days fly by," he replied. "They called me from work already. The director isn't happy about my prolonged absence." "And what did you say?" "That I need to undergo rehabilitation, and after that, I'll be back to work." "And what did they say?" "That I've been absent for too long, and there's no one to replace me. They mentioned there's a candidate for my position." Daisy didn't want to leave the company, threaten them with the law in court. "You work officially, and they have no right to fire you, especially when you have all the documents confirming that you weren't just sitting at home," Miles advised. "I'll call the director tomorrow and send the paperwork so he can see that it was a necessity." "That's the right thing to do. I'm going to bed now." Daisy yawned. "Good night," Miles replied. "Good night." 5 days later, at the health resort, there were indeed a lot of procedures, and 5 days passed very quickly. Daisy befriended a woman 3 years older than her, and together they took walks in the forest and by the lake, chatting about various things. "Are you going to the potty tonight?" her new friend asked after dinner. "My husband and daughter are supposed to arrive today. You go, and then you can tell me about it," she replied with a smile. "Well, there's nothing else to do. I'll go alone," the friend responded. After dinner, Daisy headed to the parking lot, where she waited for Miles and Maggie. About 40 minutes passed before Daisy saw Miles' car. A smile appeared on her lips. "Mummy." Maggie immediately reached out to her mother. Daisy lifted her daughter into her arms and kissed her cheek several times. "My dear," she uttered, holding Maggie close to her chest. "How have you been?" Miles asked. "Fantastic. How's your new job?" Daisy put her daughter down on the pavement. "It's a bit unusual. Still getting used to it. But honestly, I like it more there. Tired of those courtrooms. The workload is less, and the pay is even better. Let's go check in." "Mama, Dad said we're only here for 2 days, but I want us to stay here with you," Maggie said. "Maggie, Daddy is working. You'll come back to me, and then I'll return home," Daisy explained. "Well, can I stay then?" "Maggie, Mom is here for treatment, attending procedures. She can't leave you alone," Miles answered on behalf of Daisy. "I want procedures too." "You don't need those procedures. We'll go to the pool tomorrow," Daisy said. They spent the entire weekend together, strolling around the lake and swimming in the pool. Miles went for a massage, and Daisy attended some of her procedures. On Sunday after lunch, Miles and Maggie headed home. "Your husband is quite interesting," said Daisy's new friend as they went for an evening walk together. "We're getting divorced," Daisy replied, smiling sadly. "Well, you wouldn't say so from the outside." Her friend expressed surprise. "Yeah, that's how it is, Maya. I'm completely confused. I don't even know if I want a divorce or not." Daisy sighed. "What happened? Why did you decide to get divorced?" Daisy hadn't shared what happened with anyone, and it's always easier to tell a stranger. So Daisy opened up to Maya and told her everything. "Your Oliver seems unserious. He immediately hid from the problems. You say you fell in love at the wrong time, but maybe it was the right time. Did you even fall in love? Your husband realized his past mistakes and started to change. He even changed his job. He definitely loves you. If he didn't, he wouldn't have done so much for you, especially after your accident." Maya shared her opinion. "But I don't have love for him. There's gratitude, respect, attachment, but not love," Daisy replied. "And all that you just listed, isn't that love in combination? Or is it that you lack physical attraction to him? And that's the real issue. Before our daughter was born, everything suited me perfectly. Even though I never had butterflies in my stomach, he paid attention to me, and our intimacy was spontaneous, not scheduled. I enjoyed being intimate with him. There was always a lack of passion and emotions, and then I felt like a piece of furniture. He would come home from work and stay up late with his papers. Zero attention to me. But Oliver, he looked at me like no one else. I felt like a woman again. Desired, interesting, apparently not desired and interesting enough. If he backed off, my husband cheated on me. Everything was their passion, emotions, attention. I couldn't even think he was cheating." Maya smirked. "Did you get a divorce?" Daisy asked sympathetically. "Of course. 2 years ago." "Did he try to justify himself? Did he ask for forgiveness?" "Yes, of course. But it doesn't matter now. I'm alone now. But it's better this way than with such a husband. It took me a year to recover. I didn't want to leave, but I didn't take him back. We have a son, so he communicates with him. But I don't have any contact with him. Such are the passions and love." "Do you still love him?" Daisy asked. "No. Why should I love him? For betrayal? For the pain he caused me? Everything was fine with us, as it seemed to me, but he needed to assert himself at the expense of other women," Maya replied. "And I still worry because of my daughter. Miles won't give her to me. When I return, I don't know what will happen next. He says he won't kick me out, that we'll live as friends, but it won't last that long. He'll find another woman. And what then? Of course, he'll find someone else. You should think carefully about whether it's worth divorcing a man who has done so much for you, especially after you decided to leave him for someone else. If you get divorced, it's not certain that you'll find someone better. People like your Miles are hard to find," Maya said. "He won't forgive me in any case. Can infidelity be forgiven?" Daisy sighed. "Well, you said you and Oliver didn't have sex. Most likely, he's already forgiven you, but he won't believe that there was nothing. No one would believe it. If he loves you, he'll forgive. Of course, you'll have to make an effort if you want to restore your family. He has already proven his love to you, and the rest is up to you. He needs your love too. Is he not worthy of it after how he behaved with you in a difficult situation?" Maya asked. "Let's change the subject. Enough about this." Daisy didn't want to talk about her husband anymore. "Sure, whatever you want," Maya agreed. Nearly 2 weeks later on a Sunday afternoon, Miles and Maggie picked up Daisy to take her home. By Monday, she had to return to work, and her car, fully repaired, awaited her in the parking lot. Everything at home was the same as before, except that Miles wasn't buried in his paperwork. He spent the entire evening with Maggie, and even washed the dishes after dinner. Daisy went to work, and her life returned to its previous routine, except that there was no longer any intimacy with her husband. They lived like neighbors, sleeping in separate rooms. Miles remained silent about the divorce, and she avoided bringing up the topic. "I'll be late tomorrow," Miles said on Thursday evening. "Emergency at the new job?" Daisy inquired. "No, everything is well organized there. No emergencies," he replied, unwilling to explain why he would be late. Daisy didn't press for details. As usual, they went to sleep in separate rooms. Daisy couldn't sleep for a long time and decided to have some tea. She left the bedroom and overheard her husband talking on the phone. Quietly, she tiptoed to the living room door and began to eavesdrop. "The choice of the restaurant is up to you," Miles was telling someone. "Of course, I want to." "Oh, really? Me too. I'll be waiting for tomorrow." Hearing these fragments of conversation, Daisy turned pale. It was clear that her husband was talking to a woman he seemed to be going on a date with tomorrow. He had plans, which explained why he would be late. Daisy was not pleased. She quietly returned to the bedroom and collapsed onto the bed. She understood that Miles would find another woman, but she didn't expect it to happen so quickly. It was painful, very hurtful, and a wave of jealousy swept over her. Daisy spent the entire day in a gloomy mood, constantly checking the clock and wondering when Miles would return home. As the clock hands moved past midnight, she began to think that he might not come at all. Daisy ran a bath, added some bath salts, and tried to relax. Certainly, a man like her husband wouldn't stay without a woman for long, and many would be interested in such a man. But what about Maggie now? If he started living with another woman, her daughter would be left with a stranger. What should she do? Renting an apartment was beyond her means, and going back to her parents was not an option. What to do? What to do? Daisy asked herself this question again and again but couldn't find an answer. Hearing the front door open, Daisy startled. At least he came to spend the night, she thought, feeling a slight relief. "Daisy, how long will you be in the bathroom?" She heard her husband's voice after a few minutes. "Yes, I just got in," Daisy lied. The water had already cooled down, and she was considering getting out but changed her mind. He came, and now he immediately wants to use the bath. Everything was clear. Daisy bit her lip and almost cried. "Daisy, did you fall asleep in there?" Miles asked half an hour later. "I want to take a shower and go to bed." "You should have come earlier then." "I'm lying in sea salt," Daisy replied. "I should have come earlier then." "I'm lying in sea salt," Daisy replied. "It's harmful to stay in it for too long." "Finish up," he insisted. "I still need to wash my hair." "So wash it. It's 1 in the morning. Couldn't you have done it earlier?" Miles asked. "I didn't know when you would come and if you would come at all." "What do you mean if I would come at all?" "I said I would come late, not that I wouldn't come at all. You never used to come at night before." "Daisy, are we going to talk through the door, or will you start washing?" Miles asked. "You shouldn't come at night and kick me out of the bath. If you don't come out in 10 minutes, I'll pull you out myself. The door is locked from the inside. Wait as long as needed." "Fine." Daisy heard that Miles had gone somewhere. She took the shampoo, leisurely washed her hair, then washed herself just as slowly, dried off, put on a bathrobe, and stepped out of the bathroom. Miles was sitting in the kitchen with his phone in hand, typing something. Daisy realized he was messaging the person he had met today. Seeing his wife, he paused and looked at her. "So, what was that?" he asked. "Nothing. I just needed to ask you that question. Did you suddenly feel the need for a shower?" Daisy replied. "Not suddenly. I just don't want to argue with you over the bathroom anymore." Miles stood up from the chair and headed to wash up. His phone remained on the kitchen table. Daisy glanced at it. She knew the password, but she wasn't in the habit of snooping through her husband's phone. However, she couldn't resist. Within seconds, she was reading Miles' conversation with the woman. Yes, she was right. Miles had indeed been on a date today, and while she was in the bath, he was exchanging sweet messages with her. From the conversation, it was clear that they hadn't been intimate yet, discussing their next meeting plan for Sunday. As Daisy read the messages, another one from this person named Candace popped up. "It's late now. I'm going to sleep. Until Sunday and sweet dreams," she wrote, ending with a little kiss emoji. Daisy had to delete this message so that Miles wouldn't realize she had been digging through his phone. Daisy looked at the woman's profile picture, noting that there was nothing special about it. "Saturday. Any plans for today?" After breakfast, Miles asked, "I'm going for a walk with Maggie." Daisy replied, "Heading to wash the dishes. Maybe we can take her to the amusement center. Haven't been there in a while." He suggested, "Sure, take her. Aren't you coming?" "What would the two of us do there? Besides, it takes half a day." Daisy responded, "We could grab lunch at a cafe afterward. Maybe we can go to the amusement center tomorrow and just take a stroll today. We could go to a park or something." "Can't do tomorrow. How about the park today?" Miles replied, "Working on Sunday?" Daisy asked, "No, not working." Why the sarcastic tone? Must have imagined it. Just a regular tone. "So, are we going to the park?" "We are," Daisy replied curtly. During their stroll in the park, Daisy and Miles didn't engage in conversation. Daisy spent the time talking to Maggie, chasing her around the playground, and together they fed squirrels. Later, they had lunch at a cafe before heading back home. Daisy spent the rest of the day with her daughter, then went to the bedroom, watched a movie, and eventually went to sleep. On Sunday, Miles left right after breakfast and returned around 8 in the evening, surprising Daisy. She had expected him to come back closer to midnight. "No dinner?" he asked. "I only cooked for Maggie and me. We've already eaten. Didn't think you'd be back so early, so I didn't prepare anything for you," Daisy replied. "All right. No big deal," Miles said, heading to the living room. After putting Maggie to bed, Daisy knocked on the living room door and walked in. "Miles, I wanted to talk to you," she said. "Let's talk," he replied, turning off the TV. "What about our divorce? And what about Maggie? You promised we would settle everything amicably." "I was planning to deal with it this week. As for Maggie, I've thought about it a lot and made a decision. There's a 1-bedroom apartment for sale in our building. I've already checked it out and plan to buy it tomorrow. Although we don't have any shared property, this will be your place. Maggie will be with you, but I'll see her every day, and sometimes she'll stay with me. We can figure out the schedule later," Miles explained, leaving Daisy wide-eyed in surprise. "And when did you decide this? Why didn't you tell me anything?" Daisy asked, feeling lost. "I was going to talk about it tomorrow, but I have a condition. No other men should be in that apartment. If you want to date, do it somewhere else, so Maggie doesn't witness it." Miles responded, "I have no other men. And you? I'm also against my child seeing some woman with you," Daisy protested. "The situations are different." Miles looked at his wife. "What situations?" "It's about Maggie not seeing other women with her dad, just as she shouldn't see other men with her mom," Daisy said, blushing with indignation. "Daisy, I wanted to save our family. I realized I was wrong in many ways, even changed my job, but you didn't want that. You don't love me. Should I become a monk? Maybe I'll get married again. I have every right to a personal life and communication with my daughter," Miles argued. "You haven't even divorced me yet, and you're already planning to get married again. Quickly." "No, Miles, none of your women will come close to Maggie. And I have the same right," Daisy replied sharply. "Maggie won't live with another man," Miles insisted. "And she won't live with another woman either." Miles sighed, covering his face with his hands. "Daisy, you cheated on me, not the other way around. So don't play games. Otherwise, after the divorce, our daughter stays with me, and you'll be out on the streets," he said. "I didn't have a chance to cheat on you because I got into an accident. There was no intimacy with him. None, Daisy said. Even if that's true, you wanted it. You wanted to leave for him because you were indifferent to me. Every woman wants to feel like a woman. She wants attention, wants to see that she's interesting to her husband, that he desires her. Daisy almost shouted. I understood that and wanted to correct my mistakes. You kept saying you don't love me. You admitted you loved someone else. What should I do? I am who I am. If you don't love me as I am, then we should part ways. Daisy, did you do anything to be interesting to me? Miles argued. You didn't even look my way. What was I supposed to do if you didn't notice me? Daisy retorted. It's impossible to talk to you. Simply impossible. What do you want? Just tell me what you want now, Miles said, looking at his wife with a pained expression. I don't want to divorce you, Daisy said. Why all of a sudden? What's the reason? He asked with genuine surprise. Miles, I would like us to try starting over. I didn't cheat on you. I'm not lying. We have a common daughter. Isn't that the most important reason? Daisy replied, keeping her gaze on him. I don't think it will work. You'll still want love, the kind you've envisioned in your fantasies. You just need someone else. Honestly, I met a woman, and we went out on Friday. We spent today together, Miles admitted. I already figured that out. Do you love her? Have you? Daisy started asking. Daisy, you don't fall in love in 2 days. She's a good woman, calm. I like her. Otherwise, I wouldn't be seeing her. Miles interrupted. Daisy felt like her heart had stopped. And you want to be with her? She asked. I don't like to rush things. You know that. Daisy, I don't see a future for us together. I don't want the same kind of relationship we had before. It's better for us to get divorced and remain friends. I don't work tomorrow. I'll take care of the apartment. I'll show it to you in the evening. It's nice, spacious, and fully furnished. Miles explained. I don't want the same kind of relationship either. But if we both try, our relationship can become something different, something we both want, Daisy said, no longer caring about her pride. Daisy, you're still young and beautiful. You'll find someone you need, love, and everything I couldn't give you, Miles replied. Miles, please believe me. I didn't lie to you. There was no betrayal. Daisy didn't know what else to say to make her husband reconsider. Whether it happened or not is not the issue. Then what is it? You don't want to try starting over because of this. That's it. The conversation is over. Let's go to bed. Miles' voice was clearly disappointed. If you don't love me, then there's really no point. Daisy held back tears. Miles didn't say anything and began to make the sofa into a bed. Daisy stood there, looking at him, then headed to the bedroom. She curled up on the vast bed, where she used to sleep with her husband, now alone, and imagined him sleeping on this bed with Candace. Good morning, Daisy said to her husband as she entered the kitchen. Why aren't you sleeping? Just a habit of waking up at the same time. I'll take Maggie to daycare myself. So don't rush, he replied. Okay. Daisy agreed and started the coffee machine. She tried not to look at Miles, not wanting him to see that she hadn't slept half the night and had been crying. Miles drank coffee and read something on his phone, paying no attention to Daisy as she prepared breakfast. Then she left for work, where she found it hard to focus. An hour before her shift ended, Daisy received a message from someone she least expected. Hi, how are you? Oliver wrote. Daisy sighed sadly. She had completely forgotten about him, and now she felt a deep sense of disappointment. Hi. Fine, she replied, thinking that not responding would be foolish. Divorced? He asked. Almost. Maybe we can meet. Daisy widened her eyes and nervously chuckled. Why? She asked. I want to see you. That's unnecessary. We're not going to meet. He abandoned her in a difficult moment, and now he wants to meet. She thinks. No, she didn't need such a man, and what she thought was love had passed as if it never happened. There was no response to this message, but Daisy texted Maya and arranged to meet after work. She needed someone to talk to share what was on her mind. Daisy called Miles and told him she would be meeting with a friend after work, so she would be late. Then she went to a cafe where she and Maya had planned to have dinner and chat. "You're a strange woman," Maya said, listening to Daisy. "Why?" "I told him that there was nothing between Oliver and me. I said I wanted to try to start everything anew, not to destroy our family. And he already has someone else," Daisy said, almost crying. "Both of you are to blame, but you more so. You should have gone towards your husband when he suggested working on the mistakes. But even now, you haven't done anything to make him want to start over with you," Maya replied. "I said everything I could say. I felt so humiliated, and he doesn't want anything more with me." Daisy defended herself. "Everything? What about telling him you love him? For the sake of your daughter? Blah, blah, blah." "Daisy, think for yourself. Who wants it like that? Everyone wants to be loved. Miles wouldn't have taken care of you while you were broken if he didn't love you. And, as I understand, he has nothing with this Candace yet. Hasn't even said he loves her. If you want to win back your husband, tell him you love him. Seduce him. Make him understand that he is needed by you. Not for any reason, just needed." Daisy hesitated. "Will you say you don't love him? Then why suffer and go crazy? If you don't love him, let him go. He's creating excellent conditions for you after the divorce. Don't be offended, but you're foolish, Daisy. I don't want to let him go. I don't want a divorce. What if he rejects me? What if he doesn't care about my feelings?" Daisy worried. "Well, then you'll know for sure that he doesn't love you anymore. That happens, I think." Daisy started. "Oh, just tell him," looking into his eyes. "I want to be with you because I love you. Forgive me. If not, then no. You'll get over it. But at least you'll know for sure that you did everything you could." "All right. Nothing more to lose. I'll tell him. And then whatever happens, happens," Daisy agreed. Returning home, Daisy went to the kitchen, where her husband and daughter were having tea with cake. "Mommy, we bought a delicious cake," Maddie said. "I can see that. It looks very appetizing," Daisy said. "Would you like some tea with cake?" Miles asked her. "I had dinner at the cafe, but I won't refuse such a delicious treat," Daisy agreed. Miles poured her tea and placed a slice of cake on a plate. "How are you? Did you do everything you planned?" Daisy asked, taking a seat at the table. "Yes." "Are you going to watch tonight?" Miles replied. "Watch what?" "I want to watch too," Maggie immediately said. "Oh, there's nothing interesting there," Daisy said, thinking about how she and Miles would explain to their daughter that they would now be living in different apartments. "They're where?" Maggie asked. Daisy glanced at her husband, unsure of how to answer the child. "Maggie, I bought another apartment. You and I will go there when everything is ready," Miles answered. "Why do we need another apartment?" she asked. "Maggie, you're all messy. Go wash your mouth and hands," Daisy said, steering away from the topic of conversation. The apartment was indeed very nice and spacious, just as Miles described. Everything was in order, with decent furniture and good renovations. "So, how is it?" Miles asked his wife. "Fantastic," Daisy replied. "I would just change some furniture in the room so that there's space for Maggie's bed," Miles suggested. "We can rearrange a bit, shift this bed, and make it work. The room is large enough. It's a really nice apartment," she said. "Let's finish up, and you can start moving in," Miles replied. "Can't wait to bring in your other woman," Daisy blurted out. "Oh, come on, Daisy, can you talk without all this?" Miles asked, annoyed. "Did I not tell the truth?" Daisy stared at her husband intently. "What does it have to do with another woman? We're getting divorced, so it's better for us to go our separate ways. Besides, I have the right to be with whomever I want. I'm practically a free man. Miles raised his tone. Planning scheduled sex with her too? Or is she luckier than I was? Daisy persisted. Miles approached his wife, anger flashing in his eyes. Sometimes, I just want to rip out your tongue, he said. Of course. Blame me for everything that happened to our family. Your attitude pushed me to seek what you didn't give me, Daisy retorted. Miles was usually hard to unsettle, but she could see that she had succeeded this time. Oh, for God's sake. Miles sighed heavily, clasping his head in his hands. We've already discussed everything, and now you are starting all over again. It doesn't matter who's to blame or what for. Stop blaming me. I don't blame you. Let's part ways peacefully and remain friends, sure. And then suggest being friends with your other woman, Daisy said sarcastically. You've already slept with her, haven't you? We're not even divorced yet. And I'll strangle you right now. Miles took another step toward Daisy, and she met his piercing gaze with her head held high. You were childish with me. And with her? Daisy asked. Villain, Miles said, grabbing her waist and pulling her close. His lips met hers, silencing any further words. Daisy couldn't recall her husband ever kissing her like this, responding to the kiss with such eagerness and letting his hands explore her body. It was a whirlwind of emotions, momentarily detaching her from all problems, surrendering to the sudden surge of passion engulfing both of them. It was something incredible, a wild beast, thought Daisy, trying to regain her composure after such passionate sex. Was this really her husband who just did this to her? She wondered, trying to recall how it used to be at the beginning of their relationship. It was certainly different from the recent times, but also not like today. She turned to him, about to speak, when his lips met hers again, and he was on top of her. The shock was replaced by another surge of passion, and she found herself once again overwhelmed by the intense desire, resisting which she didn't want to. With a sense of tranquility, Daisy closed her eyes, basking in an incredible euphoria. Her heart still pounded in her chest like crazy, and she couldn't find the strength to say anything. When your head is filled with work, there's no room for anything else, said Miles, slowly getting up from the bed. Daisy opened her eyes and looked at her husband, still silent. It's hard to relax when you are constantly under stress, Miles continued. Infantile. Well, I'm 35, not 70, and my physiological needs are in order. It's just that besides work, when you also have a wife with a perpetually dissatisfied face and who doesn't love you, there's no desire for anything else. You're a piece of work. Miles interrupted her and started dressing. You don't even know what you want, and you're driving yourself and me crazy. Miles, what do you want? Daisy asked, sitting on the bed. Peace and for no one to drive me crazy. And what everyone else needs, he replied. So, are we not getting divorced now? Daisy asked timidly. What happened between us doesn't change anything, Miles said. Hearing this, Daisy felt like her heart stopped abruptly. She grabbed a pillow and threw it at Miles. So, what just happened between us means nothing, she shouted. Absolutely nothing, Miles calmly replied, and left the room. Daisy angrily threw another pillow against the wall. Then, she collapsed onto the bed and stared at the ceiling. They had such mind-blowing sex for the first time in their entire married life, and it turned out to mean nothing to Miles. She felt repulsive. But on the other hand, she was now sure that Miles hadn't been involved with Candace yet. After lying on the bed for a while, Daisy finally decided to return to her husband's apartment, which was still her home for now. Daisy didn't have the keys to her apartment, so she had to ring the doorbell. She didn't want to wake up Maggie, but there was no other option. No one answered the door, so Daisy had to ring again. Miles opened the door wearing just a towel, and water droplets were running down his body. Daisy realized he was taking a shower. Has Maggie woken up? She asked, entering the apartment. You pulled me out of the shower, I don't know, Miles replied. Daisy went to her daughter's room, confirmed that Maggie was still sleeping, and then went to the kitchen to pour herself some water. Miles went to the living room without saying anything to his wife. Daisy also took a shower. Afterwards, she went to the bedroom, put on a beautiful lace and sex nightgown, settled on the bed, and waited for her husband. For some reason, she was sure he would come, but he didn't. Sleep was out of the question. The image of her and Miles indulging in wild sex kept haunting her, and she wanted to repeat it before falling asleep. Not alone, but in his arms. After lying for some time, she couldn't resist and got up from the bed. Heading towards her husband, Miles was looking at something on his phone but stopped when he saw Daisy. He looked at her in surprise as she silently took the phone from his hand, placed it on the coffee table, and then straddled Miles. "What are you doing?" he asked, looking at her with astonished eyes. "The same thing we did in the new apartment," she replied and leaned in to kiss Miles, hungry to the point that, but Daisy didn't let him finish, silencing him with a kiss. Miles immediately embraced her, drawing her closer, and then slowly began to remove her nightgown. Throughout their married life, he couldn't recall a moment when his wife initiated intimacy. She always waited for him to take the lead, as if allowing him to love her. And now, out of the blue, she came herself with so much passion. It was incredibly arousing, and he wanted to make love to her all night. Daisy woke up on the couch. Miles wasn't around, but he always got up earlier. She stretched, and a smile appeared on her face. She felt so good right now, like singing and dancing. Daisy got up from the couch, put on her sexy nightgown, and headed to the kitchen. "Good morning," she said, smiling. "Good morning," Miles replied reservedly, sipping coffee and reading something on his phone. Daisy immediately felt deflated, remembering his words about their passionate encounter not changing anything. "What are you reading?" she asked, pouring herself some coffee. "I'm reading work-related stuff. You won't find it interesting," he replied. Silence settled again. Daisy took a few sips of coffee, then went to wake up Maggie, prepared breakfast, and Miles put away his phone, tussling his daughter's hair when she entered the kitchen. "What did you dream about last night?" he asked. "Nothing." "When will I have a little brother or sister?" Daisy looked away, and Miles smiled at his daughter. "Why are you suddenly talking about a little brother or sister?" he asked. "Because everyone in kindergarten has one, and I don't." "Not everyone," Miles disagreed. "Everyone," Maggie insisted. Daisy remained silent. Given the complicated situation, she didn't know what to tell her daughter. Thoughts crept into her mind that Miles' children from another woman might become Maggie's little brother or sister. Daisy shuddered. She absolutely didn't want that. No, no, and again no, she thought. It happens differently for everyone. "Someday, you'll have a little brother or sister," Miles told his daughter. "Maggie, we need to get ready," Daisy finally said. "We might be late. Let's go wash up and get dressed." It was already 10 in the evening, and Miles was still not home. He hadn't warned about the delay, and Daisy didn't want to call him herself. Could it be that after spending the night with her, Miles went on another date with that Candace? It just didn't make sense. How could he? Today with one, tomorrow with another. Daisy simply didn't recognize her husband. She urgently needed to talk to someone. So she called Maya. "So, call him," Maya suggested after listening to Daisy. "And what do I say? Where are you? Go home," Daisy asked. "That's the idea, but in a softer way." "How can you do that after we spent the whole night together yesterday?" "Maya, it was so. I've never experienced anything like that before. And after that, he goes to someone else." "How do you know he's with someone else?" "I hope not." "Oh, it seems he's come." Daisy heard the front door opening and quickly ended the conversation. "Hello." Miles walked into the bathroom and then to the kitchen. "Is there dinner?" he asked. If he's hungry, it means it's not from a restaurant. Daisy thought, feeling relieved. Yes, she replied and started reheating the dinner. Pork? Miles asked, sniffing the air. Yes, Daisy answered. She knew that Miles really liked such meat and had intentionally prepared it for him. Cool, I'll go change, he said and headed to the bedroom. Miles ate his dinner with appetite, while Daisy had juice and cookies, wondering where Miles had been after work. Thank you, it's delicious, he said, then headed to his room. Daisy washed the dishes and went to the bathroom. Are you lying down for an hour again? She heard her husband's voice. I just went in. Are we going to argue over the bath again? Daisy asked. There was no answer. This time, Daisy finished her bath quickly. Miles didn't show up again. Daisy lay in bed, eyes closed but unable to sleep. She didn't want to go to him again. But after 10 minutes of torment, she finally went to the living room and found her husband sleeping. Without much thought, she lay down next to him. As always, Miles woke up first. Daisy stretched, yawned, and went to the kitchen. Good morning, she said, pouring herself coffee. Good morning. What? Did you come to sleep with me, or are you here for more sex? He asked, looking at his wife. I don't want to sleep alone, she replied. And what are you trying to achieve? Daisy placed the coffee cup on the table and then knelt next to her husband, spreading her legs. What are you doing? We've never had such crazy sex as yesterday. I want more, she whispered in his ear. I never thought you'd suddenly become so obsessed, Miles said to Daisy. Maggie might come in. It's time for her to get up. Get off, you maniac. Reluctantly, Daisy got up. She sat at the table opposite Miles and began to drink her coffee slowly. Where were you yesterday? She couldn't resist asking. I had things to do, he replied nonchalantly. What things? Daisy continued. Important ones. What important things? Why the interrogation? Is it a secret? No. I was buying something for your new apartment. Daisy frowned. He still wants to evict her, and that didn't please her at all. I see, she mumbled. I'll go wake up Maggie. It's time, Miles said, getting up and heading to their daughter's room. How's work? Daisy asked her husband during dinner. Everything's normal. There are challenges, but nothing like the courtroom drama, he replied. Have you told Mom that you want to divorce me yet? Upon hearing such a question, Miles looked at his wife with surprise. He wants to. An interesting way to pose the question, he thought. Not yet. I'll tell you later, he said. Maybe we can still. Daisy started. I don't think so, he interrupted. Daisy, I believe that divorce would be the best solution for both of us. Enough about this. No, it's not enough. I don't want to divorce you. I want to try to start over, Daisy replied. Want or don't want? You don't even know what you want. I'm tired of our relationship, Miles stated. Tired? Then why do you still sleep with me? Daisy raised her voice. I've always been satisfied with sex with you, and now it has become more emotional from your side, and it excites me. But that alone isn't enough to keep a family, Miles explained. Let's try to fix the other aspects as well, Daisy suggested. Why are you suddenly against divorce? You'll have the apartment, and the child will live with you. I won't leave you without money. You'll find another suitable man. Why do you need me? Miles asked. Because. Daisy hesitated. I don't want to part with you, she finally said. You don't want today. Maybe you'll want tomorrow. I suggested working on our relationship, and you didn't want to. What has changed now? Your behavior has been completely inadequate lately, Miles remarked. Miles, we are both to blame for how things turned out for us. Let's try to fix and improve our relationship together, Daisy pleaded. Why bother? Miles sighed and shook his head. We have a daughter, Daisy replied. You were unhappy with me, fell in love with someone else. I don't need a repeat of that situation. When a person doesn't love, they'll always find something to pick on. get irritated, and look for what they need elsewhere. But I think maybe I still love you, Daisy stammered. Honestly, I don't care anymore. Miles got up from his chair. He had a stern look, and Daisy opened her mouth, surprised by his reaction. But she quickly approached her husband and hugged him. "Miles, do you love me?" she asked with a trembling voice. "Let go. I want to play with Maggie." He pushed Daisy away and went to his daughter, and again, Daisy went to the living room alone. Miles was not asleep. "I don't want sex. Go to sleep," he told her. "Miles, forgive me for messing up. Please, let's try to fix everything," Daisy said, sitting on the edge of the couch. "We had good sex, and it made you think it's better to keep the family." He asked. "No. You didn't abandon me after the accident. Didn't kick me out. We can discuss everything and try to correct our mistakes. It's too late. I don't want to." "Go to sleep, Daisy. I'm thinking of rearranging things in the new apartment tomorrow, and you can move out." "Are you deliberately mocking me? Getting revenge?" Daisy was becoming increasingly upset. It hurt, and she felt humiliated. Miles said nothing, facing away from his wife. "I won't give you a divorce. Just so you know, nothing will work out for you with this new woman of yours," Daisy continued, while Miles remained silent. "I'll see her, and I'll pull out her hair. Got it? And don't ignore me. I have to get up early for work tomorrow. Maybe you'll go to sleep and let me sleep?" Miles asked, yawning. "I won't," Daisy replied, and lay down beside him. "You're my husband, and that's what you'll remain," she added. Miles turned to the other side, facing his wife. "Are you in your right mind?" he asked, somewhat perplexed. He didn't expect such behavior from his wife. "No, I'm not. I won't give you a divorce," Daisy replied, pulling the blanket over herself. "Daisy, you are behaving foolishly. Go to sleep in the bedroom," Miles said. "I don't care, and I'm not going anywhere." "As you wish." He sighed and turned away from her again, embracing her husband with one hand. Daisy pressed against his back and closed her eyes. "Good night," she said. Miles sighed, removed her hand, and began to get up from the couch. "Where are you going?" Daisy immediately asked. "I want a drink," he replied, and left the room. Daisy followed him. "Maybe you should see a psychologist," Miles suddenly said. "I'll manage," she replied. "You've never been like this throughout our relationship. Your unpredictability is starting to scare me. I'm as stable as ever." "Then why don't you want to listen to me?" "Because." Daisy approached Miles closely and wrapped her arms around his neck. "Understood," he said, and laughed. Daisy leaned in for a kiss, feeling his hands clasped around her waist. Not pushing her away is already progress, she thought, and kissed Miles. "Wait," Miles said with a smile when they found themselves in the bedroom, and he pulled away from his wife. "What's going on with you?" he asked. "I've already said I want to save our family," Daisy replied. "With sex, not only. Suddenly, I've become satisfactory in everything else too. What about the romance you've been missing?" "We'll figure it out," Daisy said, preparing to kiss her husband again. But he laughed once more and turned his head away. "Wait, restless one," he added amid laughter. Daisy pouted, watching her husband laugh. She didn't understand how to interpret this. "Phew." Miles calmed down and looked at his wife with a smile. "I'm shocked by you. So, you want to save our family, and you even think you might love me. Is that it?" he asked. "Not think. I'm sure. I love you," Daisy replied. Sure. Did you decide that because of sex?" "No. Not just because of that. Miles, I'm sure. I realized that I love you, but I'm not sure about that. I'm afraid everything will be as it was. It depends on us how it will be," Daisy said. "Agreed. I really want to sleep today, so let's talk about it tomorrow. So, let's sleep." He yawned widely and lay on his side. Just sleep. And that's it? Daisy asked disappointedly. Yes, Miles replied, closing his eyes. Daisy settled next to him, embracing him with one hand, and sighed heavily, unaware that Miles smiled upon hearing that sigh. Evening the next day, Miles was delayed somewhere again and didn't notify her. Unable to resist, she grabbed her phone and called her husband. Hi. When will you be home? She asked. Soon. Already close to home, Miles said. Did you lose me? Yes. You didn't warn me. Didn't plan it. I'll be there in about 15 minutes. Don't take a bath, he replied with a smile. I won't, Daisy said, thinking that while he used to be all in his papers, at least he was home. She couldn't believe Miles spent time with this Candace. Some inner intuition told her it wasn't like that. While Miles was on his way home, Daisy decided to prepare dinner. She didn't know whether her husband would eat or not, but she thought it was better to have dinner ready just in case. It smells so good, Miles said when he entered the kitchen. I didn't know if you would eat or not, but still decided to cook, Daisy replied, looking at her husband and trying to guess where he had been. Of course, I will. I'm starving. Just need to change quickly. Miles smiled. Miles, why did you come back so late today? Were you buying something for the new apartment again? Daisy asked. No. Went out to have some fun, he replied. Having fun? Huh. Daisy was annoyed deep down. He went out to have fun. Didn't even call. With whom? And what kind of fun? Daisy asked. Do you really need me to tell you all that? Miles replied with a smile. It's like an interrogation. Daisy, you never used to interrogate me. I don't even know how to react to this now. You used to stay home with your papers and never stayed late after work. And you didn't like that either. Yes, but I don't like it now either. Were you with a woman? Miles laughed. Are you mocking me? Daisy asked, starting to get angry. If I were with a woman, I'd probably be in some restaurant, not having dinner here, he replied. Then where and with whom? Daisy didn't give up. With colleagues. We went to play a virtual game. It happened spontaneously. We'll go again in a week. If you want, I can take you with me. Daisy felt a sense of relief and exhaled. I want to, even though I don't quite understand what it is, she replied. Cool. You'll like it. There were women there too. They came out thrilled. I suggest we get back to our conversation. We didn't finish it yesterday. Yeah. Miles, let's try to start fresh, Daisy said. Daisy, I'm really tired of our relationship. I was ready to forgive your betrayal. When you had the accident, I almost lost my mind. Blamed myself for kicking you out of the apartment then. But all I saw from you was indifference all the time. Do you think it's pleasant to come to the hospital and see another man by your wife's side? Then at home, you were lost in thoughts about him. Every patience has its limits. Yes, I agree that I have my share of blame in what happened, but I wanted to fix our relationship, and you didn't give me the chance. I thought about it, but I'll give it another try. And you suddenly had a change of heart, found out I was dating someone, and suddenly, a sense of ownership flared up. You never loved me. Remember, at the beginning of our relationship, I tried my best to win you over. Did you need anything? No. You just accepted everything as a given and allowed yourself to be loved. Then I just gave up. You still didn't love me. So what's the difference? I waited for your love, but it wasn't there. And notice, I didn't even have a mistress. Miles, I know I was wrong in many ways, but now I've reevaluated everything and realized that I love you. Daisy replied. My personal life is my business. I met that woman only twice and realized I'm not ready for new relationships. For a while, I just want to be alone. I'll reflect on my mistakes, and I suggest you do the same, analyze them, and avoid repeating them in future relationships. I don't need other relationships. I want to be with you, Daisy said, stuttering through tears. You don't know what you want. It's time to grow up, Daisy. Miles stood up. I'm going to take a shower and go to bed. Don't come to me, he added and left the kitchen. Mom, why are your eyes red? Daisy asked Maggie over breakfast. Maybe I didn't get enough sleep, Daisy replied, looking at her daughter. Did you sleep well? Yes. I dreamed that I have a little sister and a little brother, Maggie answered. Upon hearing this, Daisy was on the verge of tears again but managed to hold back. What else did you dream about? She asked. That you bought me a kitten. Crafty, Miles said with a smile. Why don't you want to buy me a kitten? The little girl asked. Because, Daisy began, unsure of how to continue. There wasn't a compelling reason to refuse. I'll buy you a kitten for your birthday, Miles suddenly said. Really? Maggie lit up. Really? He replied. Hooray, hooray, hooray. Soon I'll have a kitten. Dad, just buy a girl. I want to name her. Maggie pondered and laughed. I haven't come up with a name yet. You'll come up with one, Daisy said, starting to braid her daughter's hair. She tried not to look at her husband. The conversation from yesterday still puzzled her, and she couldn't stop thinking about how to win Miles back. Nothing came to mind. Panic dominated her soul. She hardly slept all night, crying into her pillow. Having finished styling Maggie's hair, Daisy went to get dressed. She was in no mood for work, suddenly thinking it would be better to take a day off. She called her boss and lied, saying she had a fever. He, of course, told her to stay home and get well. She put on jeans and a t-shirt, then went to the kitchen where Maggie was. Are you going to work like this? Miles asked, surprised, looking at his wife. No. I took a day official. I'll go on Monday, she replied. Are you sick? Miles asked. I am. I just don't know how to treat myself when my heart and soul are in pain, Daisy blurted out. Maggie, let's finish quickly and get ready. Returning, Daisy collapsed on the bed and turned on the TV. While flipping through channels, she stumbled upon Gone with the Wind and burst into hysterical laughter. Here we go again, she said, and started watching a movie she knew by heart. After some time, well into more than half of the film, Daisy suddenly craved chocolate. She remembered there was a whole box of chocolates in the kitchen. Eating one chocolate after another, she twisted the wrappers into little balls and threw them against the wall. As the final scene of the movie played out, she finished the last chocolate, which was moist and salty from her tears. Think about it tomorrow. What will change tomorrow? She quietly said with a trembling voice, burying her nose in a pillow and continuing to cry. Then she reached for her phone upon hearing a message. Hey, how are you? Is life getting better? Maya wrote. Sadly smiling, Daisy began typing her response. No, nothing's getting better. Haven't you reconciled with your husband? He left me. Here I am lying on the bed, devoured a box of chocolates watching Gone with the Wind, and cried a whole lake. Maya immediately called her. Hey, Daisy, is it really that bad? She asked. Everything is terrible. Tomorrow, he's kicking me out. Filed for divorce. He doesn't care about my feelings. He doesn't want anything. He fell out of love with me, Daisy replied. I didn't expect this. Daisy, come over to my place. We'll talk. You'll tell me everything, and we'll figure it out together, Maya suggested. Oh, I don't know, Daisy said, choking on her tears. Come on, and calm down. Take a cool shower. Have some coffee. I'll wait for you at 2:30. Daisy suddenly felt the need to confide in someone and seek support. After splashing her face with cool water, she decided to call Miles. Hey, Miles, I need to leave. Please pick up Maggie from daycare. I really have to go for a few hours, she said. All right. If you need to, I'll pick her up. Will you be back late? Miles replied. No, not too late. After a brief conversation with her husband, Daisy left the house, called a taxi, and headed to Maya's place. Getting drunk is not the solution, Maya said, listening to Daisy, who was slowly finishing her second glass of wine. I'm not planning to. Just trying to relieve some stress. Maya, I was sure he would forgive me, and we wouldn't get divorced. I can't accept this. I can't, replied Daisy. I also thought you two would reconcile. But maybe it's not too late. Perhaps you need to change how you interact with him. Maybe he doesn't believe in your sincerity, in your love for him. I don't know. I just can't believe he fell out of love with you. It happens, of course, but it just seems to me that the reason is that he doesn't trust you. He needs to understand that you truly love him. You can think all you want, Maya. I'm numb. Can I crash at your place for a bit? Daisy asked. Of course, let's go to the bedroom. If you want, you can stay overnight. No, thanks. I'll head home. Wake me up at 8. Daisy said. Sure, everything will work out. Don't worry so much. Maya encouraged her. Daisy sighed and closed her eyes. She fell asleep very quickly, and when she woke up, she felt lighter. They had tea, and Daisy called a taxi to go home. Talking to Maya had indeed made her feel much better. When Daisy entered the apartment, Miles stepped out of the living room into the hallway. Hey, he said. Hey, Miles, can I move out tomorrow? She asked. I'll pack up my things and move in a day. Have you rearranged the furniture? Daisy spoke very calmly. No, we'll rearrange next week. It's not urgent, he replied. Daisy didn't say anything and went into the bedroom, where she immediately collapsed onto the bed, hugging a pillow and staring at the wall. Miles followed her and sat on the bed. Have you been drinking? He asked. A little. Went to a friend's. You know, today I've been thinking a lot about what love really is. I always thought you didn't love me. It's often like this in life when you understand and realize something. It's too late, and nothing can be fixed. Daisy said quietly. I want to go to the aquarium on Saturday. Maggie hasn't been there yet, and I think she'd find it interesting. What do you say? Miles asked. Of course, go ahead. I'm sure she'll enjoy it, replied Daisy. All together. I meant that you should come too, Miles said. Miles, it will be so hard for me. Maybe we should try to spend less time together now. I can't see you as just a friend. Now I understand how painful it is when you love, but the feeling is not reciprocated, Daisy said, looking at her husband with sadness. Miles remained silent. I can't imagine how to explain everything to Maggie, Daisy said, sighing. Me neither, Miles replied thoughtfully. Forgive me for treating you this way. I'm really sorry that things turned out like this for us, Daisy said. Miles lay down next to his wife on his side, facing her. Forgive me too, he said quietly. Daisy couldn't resist and pressed her lips to his, tears streaming down her cheeks. She wasn't trying to seduce Miles. She just couldn't resist the impulse. We need to take a shower and go to bed, he whispered, pulling away from her lips. I'll go then. I'll be quick, Daisy replied, and he removed his hands from her waist. After the shower, Daisy put on and went to bed. Her heart was very heavy again, and she understood that no amount of kissing or even sex would change anything. She was almost asleep when she suddenly felt someone's arms hug her tightly. Daisy was sure that this was not a dream and turned over on her other side, and then slightly opened her eyes. Sleep, Miles said softly, and she settled on his chest, experiencing an incredible feeling of peace in her husband's arms. When Daisy woke up, Miles and Maggie were already out of the house. She tried to disconnect from all thoughts, and after breakfast began cleaning the apartment. Whatever it is, life goes on, and you need to somehow pull yourself together and continue to live. After finishing her household chores, Daisy went grocery shopping at the nearest supermarket. She slowly wandered around the store, throwing the necessary products into the cart, until she ran into Oliver, whom she did not expect to meet here at all. Hello. I didn't think I'd see you again, he said, not hiding his surprise. Hello. I didn't think about it either. Daisy replied without emotion. How are you? Did you leave your husband? He asked. I'm fine. How's yours? Daisy did not answer the question about her husband without much change. Maybe we can meet in the evening. Sit in a cafe. Chat. He suggested. No. Not a good idea. Daisy, you didn't know what you wanted at the time. I didn't. Oliver, everything worked out the way it did. She interrupted him. And you were right. It's unlikely that we would have succeeded. I'm sorry. I need to buy groceries and pick up my daughter. I'll go. Daisy slowly walked on, pulling a cart in front of her. And the man looked after her, and then went in the other direction. After returning from the supermarket, Daisy began to cook dinner, and then picked up her daughter from kindergarten. Miles returned from work early this time. Daisy was playing with Maggie in the room, and he went into the nursery. Dad. Maggie immediately hurried to her father. How's my baby doing? He asked, and kissed the child on the cheek. I've been thinking up a name for my kitten all day, but I haven't come up with one yet, she replied. Well, there's still time. We'll figure it out later together, he said. Dinner on the stove, Daisy said. Her heart felt heavy again when she saw her husband. All right, have you eaten yet? He asked. Maggie is, but I'm not yet, Daisy replied. Maybe we'll have dinner together, and Maggie will eat ice cream for now. I don't want to. I'll just sit with you. Daisy got up and went to the kitchen after the married one. Maggie talked incessantly about the kitten she was already eager to get, and Daisy was thinking about how and when she and Miles would tell her that they would live separately. As soon as Maggie fell asleep, Daisy went to the bedroom and began to pack her things to move into a new apartment. She folded them on the bed and went into the hallway to get her suitcase. Miles, please get me a suitcase, she asked her husband. Don't need any suitcases. I'd better move there for now, and you and Maggie stay here. I thought about everything today and realized that I made the wrong decision. Daisy stared at her husband in surprise, not knowing what to say. I'll move in on Sunday evening, added Miles. Are you sure? Daisy asked, biting her lip. Why bother Maggie and move her from her room somewhere? And you too. I'm not mad anymore. It just boiled over the years, and now I'm gone and I can reason sensibly again. Miles smiled slightly. So you've forgiven me? Daisy asked timidly. I've forgiven you. I hope you love me too, and we both don't hold grudges against each other. Yes, sure, Daisy replied. Can I help you put things back in the closet? Rest. I'll do it myself. It won't be long. Daisy went back to the bedroom. Daisy. Daisy. Hearing her husband's voice, Daisy opened her eyes slightly. Is something wrong with Maggie? She asked, alarmed, sitting up abruptly. No, Maggie is sleeping. Everything's fine, Miles reassured her as he pulled his hands from behind his back, revealing a small bouquet of flowers. Her heart immediately raced. I'll try to present it to you romantically, Miles said with a smile, preparing to kneel down. However, Daisy rushed into his arms and burst into tears. Don't care on romantic. Do you still love me? She quietly asked. I never said I didn't, he replied. Daisy looked into her husband's eyes. Will we be together again? She asked hesitantly. Let's try to start fresh, he said. Daisy smiled and hugged him tightly again. You're going to suffocate me now, he said with a smile. I want to give you something. Daisy released her embrace and looked at her husband, who pulled a velvet case from his sports pants pocket. I wanted to give you this once before, Miles said, opening the case to reveal a gold ring adorned with a sprinkling of small diamonds. Will you be my wife? He asked. I was and will be, and I promise it will be different now, she replied, accepting the ring and shining with happiness. I love it when you cling to me, he said, slowly removing her pajamas. It's incredibly arousing. Well, you can cling to me too sometimes, she replied, taking off his shirt. I definitely will. I'll even try to master all this romance. And I'll try not to throw tantrums and not drive you crazy. I hope so, Miles said, covering Daisy's neck with kisses. Was I a terrible drama queen? Daisy suddenly asked, a selfish one with consequences. We'll work on our flaws together. And for now, come here. Miles deftly flipped onto his back and seated Daisy on top. They didn't talk anymore, engaging in more enjoyable activities. Daisy woke up to the sound of Maggie jumping on the bed and giggling. Who's this little kangaroo here? She asked with a smile, slightly opening her eyes. I'm already awake, Maggie replied, flopping onto Daisy. Miles rolled onto his back, yawned widely, and stretched. There's no sleeping in on weekends with her around, he said, lightly tickling his daughter's heel, making her burst into laughter. We need to get up. Daisy smiled at her husband and started to slowly get out of bed. What does everyone want for breakfast? She asked. Please announce the whole menu. Miles replied. Porridge, scrambled eggs, and I can make pancakes. Daisy replied with a smile. Pancakes. They almost chorused, and Daisy headed to the kitchen. Her mood was fantastic. Well, what do you say? Shall we slowly get ready and head to the aquarium? Miles looked at his daughter and then at his wife after everyone finished breakfast. Yes, yes, yes. Maggie got up from her chair and ran to wash up. I'll go help her. Miles went after his daughter, turned on cartoons for her in the bedroom, and then returned to the kitchen where Daisy was doing the dishes. I was thinking, maybe my mom could move to the new apartment, and we could rent out her place. Miles suggested. Will she agree to move? Daisy asked. I don't know. I'll ask. Just wanted to make sure you're okay with it first. Miles replied. I'm fine with it, she said, giving him a gentle kiss. So, does that mean you'll be all sweet and agreeable now? He asked, placing one hand on her waist and the other on her thigh. I definitely don't want any more fights between us. You can't imagine how I felt when I thought it was all over between us. I can imagine. I love you even when you are difficult. But it's better to live peacefully without arguments and reproaches. Daisy beamed upon hearing those words. Was I really difficult? She asked. Yeah. Miles kissed her. Let's get ready and go. Let's. In less than an hour, they left the house and headed to the aquarium. The day was simply wonderful. But since neither Daisy nor Miles had slept well the night before, they went to bed as soon as Maggie fell asleep. Shall we work on our issues a bit? Or sleep? Miles asked his wife. Let's work on them a bit. How? She replied. I suggest discussing what we didn't like about each other. Calmly, honestly, without emotions, Miles proposed. Okay, agreed Daisy. Besides the lack of romance, what else didn't you like? He asked. There was a lack of passion. You always seemed so serious. No room for jokes or laughter. I felt like you didn't love me because I didn't see much emotion from you, Daisy answered. And now, am I different? Now everything seems different. Now, Daisy paused. Now you've started taking the initiative yourself. Like, if, when I worked from home, you came up to me, sat down like you just did, kissed me, said something nice. Believe me, my annoying work papers would be put aside. Conclusion. We both need to pay attention to each other. It's incredibly pleasant when you come to me and kiss me on your own, not just wait for me to do it. And I immediately want to do something for you, not to mention how much I enjoy it when you're affectionate and look at me with love. I'll try. I also enjoy being close to you. Daisy smiled. If something is wrong or you don't like something, we should calmly discuss it. Solve problems together. Agreed. Agreed. And could you tell me more often that you love me? Miles smiled and held Daisy closer. Okay. Apart from romance, more attention, fun, and spending time together. What else? He asked. Everything else is fine. I want you to always be like you were in the last 2 days. Smiling, calm, affectionate towards me. And it's important for me to always know that you love me. I love you. Daisy kissed her husband's shoulder and yawned. "Do you want to sleep? Let's finish our conversation for today then. I thought we might do something pleasant before sleep, but you didn't get much rest last night. So rest." Miles kissed his wife on the forehead, and she immediately perked up. "Well, I don't really want to sleep that much." She raised her head and looked into Miles's eyes, and he laughed. "Turns out you're insatiable," he said, and his hands started to caress her body. "Come to me." Miles pulled Daisy under him, and she embraced him around the shoulders. "I told you that you're incredibly sexy, right?" Miles asked between kisses. "No," Daisy coquettishly replied, thinking about how foolish she had been for so many years, and how she finally realized how much she valued her husband and loved him. Epilogue. For her birthday, Maggie was given a kitten, just as she had dreamed. They adopted it from a shelter. Daisy now looked at her husband with completely different eyes, and her behavior changed. She no longer nagged him, and he paid enough attention to his wife. Of course, there were disagreements, but as they agreed, they resolved everything calmly without quarreling. They managed to achieve understanding, and after the passionate nights that followed their reconciliation,